Hey everyone, Screenplay Archaeology host KiramidHead here. Just wanted to get some plugs out of the way before the new episode starts. We have now come under the umbrella of Fandom Live Media, which is also the home of the Table Reads podcast, which is a fellow unproduced script podcast, where they read said scripts out in full over several episodes. So if you like this subject matter and you're curious about a different format for it, definitely check those guys out. Not the least reason which is because you'll be paying tribute to my new podcast overlords, and that can only have a benefit. Also, check out the Shelved Film Podcast, which covers similar subject matters. They're not tied in with us, but I want you to go check them out. I want to make that recommendation because I'm just a nice guy like that. And as usual, be sure to check us out on social media on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter. We're on almost every means of listening to podcasts. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, a bunch of other places, especially now that I'm on a new platform which can distribute it to a whole ton of different places. So be sure to check out Spotify, Google Podcasts, stuff like that as well. And also a couple of things I want to throw in at the end. We do have a Patreon page. There's not much there. I can't really think of a rewards tier at the moment. And also, I have a Discord server that's been put together for a while, so if you want to show up and try that, as long as you're not an asshole, nothing will happen to you. You won't get kicked out. Just follow the rules. You'll be good. Check that link out down below. And with that, enjoy the episode. All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Screenplay Archaeology podcast. I'm your host, KiramidHead.
And KtuluJack here. Once again.
This time in an episode that's probably not going to be 3 to 5 hours long.
Only one script this time.
But it's a script with a ton of shit going into it because we're going to be covering Justice League Immortal, written by the husband and wife team, Kieran and Michelle Mulroney, and which was supposed to be directed by George Miller, had a whole cast and crew in place, and a ton of shit happened, and it effectively got delayed until the success of The Dark Knight convinced Warner Brothers to go a different way with their DC characters, i.e., not really do a whole lot with them. Is that a fair description for those few years there?
Yeah, Batman. Batman all day, every day, only Batman.
And Green Lantern, oh shit, that didn't work.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Chris, you want to do a Superman movie? No, I bloody don't. Zach, you do it. Oh shit, the Avengers made a lot of money. Zach, can you take this obviously meant to be standalone Superman movie and make it into a universe? Okay.
And do it in 3 movies or less.
Yeah, but I gotta make all the movies 4 hours long, guys. No, you're gone. But okay, so joking aside, I figured this would be a good one to do because I actually meant to do this episode back when the theatrical cut of Justice League came out. Like, it was like a real razor-thin choice between this or the early Mark Protasiewicz draft of Thor, because that and Ragnarok were out within like a week of each other. But then, fate would have it, at the last minute, Netflix finally announced a release date for season 1 of The Punisher, and I went, screw it, Shadow Pred, we're doing Punisher scripts this month.
I remember those. Those were pretty good, actually.
Yeah, those were good scripts. And because I don't know if you remember, but the run-up for that show, like, they were just deliberately not putting a release date in the trailers. They were, like, blacking it out like it was a classified document. So now, 4 years later, almost 4 years later, not quite exactly, it's fitting to put this out this month because sometime later this month we're getting whatever the 4-hour Snyder cut of Justice League is going to be on HBO Max. So it's timely.
And I'm excited. I'm not like over the moon excited, but I'm pretty excited. I hope that this opens up I want to see it because I like BVS. I haven't seen Justice League, the Whedon cut. But what I'm really excited about is I hope that this opens up doors for different cuts to come out, like the Schumacher cut of what they call the Schumacher cut of Batman Forever, or the McTiernan cut of 13. Yeah, I'm more excited of the possibilities that this could hold.
It's one of those things where I'm glad he got the chance to release his version, even if I have sneaking suspicions he made some of this stuff up after the fact, and those reshoots he did with, what, $60 million he got?
70 million, and he absolutely did. Like, it's gonna, you know how long it's gonna be, right?
Yeah, it's 4 hours. It's longer
4 hours.
It's longer than The Irishman, and I hope it's worth the 4 fucking hours. Jesus. And as for the theatrical Justice League, it's bad. It's not good at all. There's like one or two kind of cool action bits, but really the best thing, I mean, even Ben Affleck, who I thought, despite my reservations with BVS, was great in BVS. You can tell he's fucking depressed and that he's fallen off the wagon. And the movie, the best thing I can say for the theatrical cut is that the theater had just installed the comfortable recliner seats, and they were so comfortable I nearly took a nap.
Oh man.
But that was not the first Justice League movie they tried to make. In fact, even Justice League Immortal isn't the first live-action Justice League thing, because there was that obscure failed pilot from 1997, which we don't want to talk about.
Well, I've heard, yes, let's not. But I've heard that this dates all the way back to the early 80s. They were thinking about doing Justice League with Christopher Reeves. But that was probably just talk.
Which we'll get into. But no, just talking about the context of when this came out, Blade kind of, slipped in under the radar, and most people probably didn't even know that was based on a comic book when it came out. X-Men sort of primed audiences, and then Raimi's first Spider-Man kind of opened the floodgates for superhero movies. And from that point out, you had a Marvel movie out almost every year, if not every year. But so yeah, there was all those Marvel movies coming out. And DC, they were trying, Warner Brothers, I should say, was trying, because DC doesn't actually do shit when it comes to the movies. I mean, they were working on stuff, but all they managed to get out before this was written was Catwoman, Batman Begins, and Superman Returns, which is just an interesting mix, because they had been trying stuff, like Superman Returns was the end of this very long development hell process for a Superman movie, which you can read all about online. There's a documentary about the Superman Lives portion of it, which is really good and worth seeking out, but I do think it kind of leaves a few things out to make the movie seem better than it might actually have been.
Yes, very much so.
Because if you actually read those scripts, it's like they probably should have mentioned some of the stupid shit that happens in them. And then from there, they kind of, like, in terms of scripts that actually exist or out there, there came the J.J. Abrams version, which was close to being into production a couple of times, but then Bryan Singer came in and said, no, that's stupid. The Batman versus Superman, which would actually have been titled Superman and Batman, as I've found out since then.
Was that one Asylum?
Yes, that's Asylum. So you had that, you had multiple versions of Wonder Woman, were in the works at Joel Silver's company, which we talked about him in that last episode we did together.
Oh God, yeah, and that's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down, because there's like not a million, but I think there's like 4 or 5 Wonder Woman drafts out there, and they're all pretty terrible.
But like, basically, this was announced in February of 2007. I think Whedon was like 2 months away he was a couple months away from officially leaving Wonder Woman, and I'm pretty sure David Goyer had just parted ways with Warner Brothers over The Flash because they couldn't agree on that movie, which is unfortunate because his script's actually really good. And this is also like 2006 was the Jack Black version of Green Lantern. That was in the works. There was like, and even like not too long after, like they were still kicking around the idea of Man of Steel 2 at this point. And not Man of Steel 2, Superman Returns 2.
Yeah. Going full Wrath of Khan, as Bryan Singer would say. And I'm like, I don't know. All right.
And so that, they were still talking about that. Like, they were still developing a Lobo movie at this point. There was Shazam not long after this fell apart. So the point is that they were in the middle of doing all these different unconnected Flash movies, which is interesting because while this was in the works, around October 2007, David Dobkin got attached to direct The Flash, and he said that the Flash movie would be spinning off from Justice League Immortal. And then a month later, he said, oh no, it's not going to be. It's going to be a standalone thing. So something tells me that Warner Brothers didn't fucking know what they wanted to do, because every other thing was completely separate from this. Now, the script is written by, and I'm going to have to cut a ton of this shit out because we're 40 minutes in. The script is written by Kieran and Michelle Mulroney, who have a very short IMDb resume as writers. They're a husband and wife team. And their credits are basically, I think there's a movie called Paperman in there, which is this weird indie movie, which I want to watch because it's Jeff Daniels as a comic book artist, and he has a superhero imaginary friend played by Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, I saw that last night, and I was like, what is this? Okay.
They eventually would write Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, which I really like that movie. It is beyond obvious that it was rushed to get it done before Downey had to do Avengers.
Yes, very much so.
But it's still a very good movie. And they have a story credit on the Power Rangers movie from a few years ago, which who knows what the fuck they actually contributed to that, because they're like 2 of like 6 writers with their names on that movie, most of whom have story credits. But that movie ended up being surprisingly decent, I thought.
Yeah, I heard good things.
Like,
but
it was
not something I'm going to go search out.
Like, it wasn't the total Bayformers disaster that I think people were expecting, but it's also not perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, they have, and weirdly, I didn't look at Michelle's IMDb page, but Kieran's IMDb page, he has this long list of like bit parts he's played in movies and TV.
Yeah, he was a little bit of an actor there.
Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting that these relatively untested writers got the job of writing a big event movie like this.
Great agents. Yeah,
they must have the best agents. That's all I can imagine. And of course, eventually they got George Miller to direct, but funnily enough, the first choice to direct was Jason Reitman. And it's like, he said, no, guys, I'm like an indie guy. I don't want to do a big budget movie, which is understandable.
Yeah, I get that.
And he kind of has changed his tune a little bit, considering he's doing that new Ghostbusters movie. But I understand that, considering, it's about, honoring his dad.
Yeah, and it seems like the movie's going to be all, like, it seems like the movie is going to be about legacy. So, I get it.
Which I keep forgetting that movie's supposed to be coming out because it's been delayed so many times.
Yeah.
The weird fucking world that we live in. But, but George Miller took it on, and we all know him, Mad Max, all 4 Mad Max movies, Witches of Eastwick, Babe 2, he produced the first one, but he only directed the second. And his most recent movie at this point was Happy Feet.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. So this would not have been, I know that so going into this, I'd heard great things about this script. I'd heard a lot of, real positive things that people have said about this. And like one of the things I keep hearing is, this was going to be the George Miller Justice League movie. But I think people need to realize this was not Fury Road George Miller. This was Happy Feet George Miller.
It's Happy Feet George Miller in between differing development phases of Fury Road, just not happening.
Yeah. Oh.
Although I want to say Tom Hardy had actually been cast not by this point, but like he cast him in like 2009.
Yeah, and the original intention was to have Heath Ledger play Max.
That would have been really interesting. That's a shame.
As far as George Miller goes, one thing that never gets mentioned, because of the events surrounding the movie, I love his segment in the Twilight Zone movie.
Yeah, that's the good segment of that movie.
Well, there's 2 good segments. I like Joe Dante's segment with the outstanding Rob Bottin effects.
Yeah, I need to see that again, but I remember that one being pretty good. The Spielberg one is like, because it's a worse version of the episode it's based on.
And that's it. There's only the 3 segments. It's a shame they didn't do 4.
One thing I think is, I have to talk about the Landis segment because I think it's hilarious how that movie went from like a bittersweet but optimistic message to you're going to fucking die in the Holocaust.
Yeah, they really,
they really lost their heads over that one.
But no, don't you do that. But yeah, no, I love the 4th segment, and if you haven't seen the Twilight Zone movie, separate yourself from the events, but I think it is very much worth a watch. So, yeah.
It's just unfortunate that the worst one comes first.
Yeah, you gotta stick with it a little while, but it gets really good.
Yeah, we only killed children in that one.
Oh, Jesus.
But no, it's intriguing that George Miller got brought on board to this, because it had been a while since he had done anything really action-y. Since Thunderdome, and he only directed like half of that movie too, because because his friend and producing partner died in a helicopter crash scouting locations, and Miller just said, I don't have it in me to do this, so he got help.
No, that's understandable.
Which I'm actually one of those people who's like, I like all 4 Mad Max movies. I like Thunderdome.
It's been a long time since I've seen that one, so I liked it as a kid, but I'd be interested in seeing it again. I'm sure the camp and cheese factor would make it a great movie.
It is definitely the campiest of the 4, which is saying something considering the absolute. I had a word on the tip of my tongue, and it's not madness. There's some
batshit insane.
No, it's not related to insanity. It's a word about like you're really big and like eccentric and you don't know and you don't care. I can't. It's a word that for some reason in my mind I'm associating with drag queens. I just like. I hate it when this happens. Brain fart, Jesus. But either way,
right.
I mean, Mad Max Fury Road turned out amazing, and I'm not wild about the fact that they're doing a direct prequel to it.
Mad Max Fury Road was the best movie of the last decade. Boom! I said it. Mic drop.
But no, that's an interesting set of, it's an interesting, guy they brought on. And I can only assume that George Miller would have ordered rewrites of this because we've seen concept art of this, which has almost entirely been released by Ryan Unicombe, who's doing a documentary. He started working on it in 2015. He had to stop for legal reasons, but he started it back up again in 2020. And I believe it's supposed to be due out by the end of this year, but I don't believe documentary release dates anymore ever since those Definitive Films assholes screwed me on the Riddle of Steel documentary, which has supposedly been done for nearly 2 years.
Yeah, I always forget that's a thing.
But it's one of those things like, hopefully it'll be out by the end of the year. And he's just been like drip feeding concept art on his Instagram over the past year. And I'm just like, definitely. So if that's out by the end of the year, you won't even need to listen to this episode because it will be completely irrelevant.
I'm sorry, but I was going to say, but yeah, there's no way this was a final draft.
No, and it is rough in places. I think I like it more than you do.
Oh, I don't hate it. I think that this was a immensely entertaining read.
But I actually think there's parts of this that don't work, but there's parts of it that, but there's just, it's mainly there's just some weird parts in it where it's like, what is that?
Yeah, no, but there's definitely there's more than just a skeleton here for a good movie. Like there's quite a bit that I do like, but we will get to that in just a second.
And I will say this, I like it more than the Joss Whedon theatrical cut of Justice League, because this at least does not have the Flash babbling on like an idiot about brunch.
I mean, kinda, it does.
Oh, a little bit, but not. It's not as stupid and like. I mean, there's context for him talking about food in this, whereas there is none at all in that scene.
It's also got some weird like connotations between Flash and Wonder Woman, which I know was a point of contention in the Whedon cut.
Between Wonder Woman and fucking everyone in this.
Yeah, that's true.
Except Superman. I'll have to talk about that when we get to it, but basically what we're going to do, right, is I'm going to give you a brief plot synopsis of what this thing is about. And as we go through it, we're going to talk about the casting as each character gets introduced. That's at least my concept for this. Because the cast... Yeah,
that sounds great.
The cast is interesting, to say the least. So basically what the plot of this is that this is actually adapting and combining a couple of DC story arcs from the 2000s. It's Tower of Babel and the OMAC Project, which was an Infinite Crisis tie-in, which I've read bits of because they're in the Greg Rucka Wonder Woman trades, which I was reading through. So I have some perspective on how that's adapted here. Namely, the one thing they really fuck up, which I think you know what I'm talking about, the neck snap.
Yep.
But so basically what the plot is that all of these superheroes are already established, so this is not an origin story. The Justice League doesn't exist, but the heroes are around. Most of them know each other. The Flash is kind of our point of view character, and he's the new guy who hasn't met everybody yet.
Yes, this very much is a Flash movie.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
It's Flash, Batman, and weirdly, if you go by screen time, Flash and Batman, and then Wonder Woman, even though you never get a handle on her character in this. It's very strange. But essentially, The heroes all exist. The supervillains, as we find out, are basically all locked up. And as they say in the script, world peace has been achieved, which is a strange way to open it, and I never wrapped my head around that. But Batman has descended into paranoia, and he's created this satellite called Brother Eye, which is spying on all the other heroes and gathering data on them. And he's created these contingency plans to exploit their weaknesses in case they go bad. And he's just obsessively, looking into this. But meanwhile, one of Bruce Wayne's friends, who's this billionaire named Maxwell Lord, who has his fingers in everything, including a restaurant chain, hint, hint, has, with the help of Talia Al Ghul, who is in this, has basically hacked into Brother Eye and is exploiting the weaknesses and turning, the different superheroes against each other who have not become the Justice League yet for his own nefarious ends. And they all sort of come together against the adversity in this, essentially, as he begins to unleash something called the OMAC Project.
Yeah, it's an origin story for how the group meet, but it's not an origin story for any of the characters. I was actually kind of surprised they didn't do any of the origin. Like, they just went ahead and were like, yeah, you know who these characters are, we're jumping in.
Like, they don't even do basic character setup in this, let alone origin stories.
Nope.
That was very strange, but as we'll get into this, okay, so we're going to get started, and it opens on the Justice League because it's not really in media res, it's more, it's bookending. It's got the Justice League, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter. Batman is absent. And they're attending a funeral in the Metropolis Cathedral, which that location is not really going to make sense when we get to the ending of this, wearing black mourning variants of their costumes, while Wonder Woman delivers the eulogy. And as the service moves to the gravesite in the pouring rain, cemetery is misspelled, I noted in the notes. I don't know why, but screenwriters, most of them cannot spell cemetery to save their lives.
Notice that. Is it spelled like the Stephen King way, or do they just like...
The E at the E in airy is an A. And it jumps to 2 days before with the caption, "The world is at peace." So it's bookending with this funeral, and the implication is that, oh no, Batman's not here. Is he the one in the coffin?
Batman's fucking dead.
Were you at all, did you think that was what actually happened when you read this?
No, I didn't. I thought, okay, so we're going to get into this a little bit deeper, actually the very next scene. But I thought it was very much going to be, I thought it was going to be Dark Knight Returns comic book ending, where Batman goes underground after and as I was reading, I was like, oh, he's like definitely going to like go underground after this whole thing, because the superheroes are going to fucking hate him. And then in the sequel, he's going to emerge from underground and lead a rebellion with webcam models. By horseback, of course. Do you actually know what that is? That a Frank Miller reference? Dark Knight Strikes Again. Okay, yeah. What were they named? The I don't know. Dixie Chicks. The Dixie Chick knockoffs, right? Yeah. I don't remember what they are. They're like a band that are also webcam strippers. Yeah. I just have two little notes here. I'm number one, the image of the superheroes being pallbearers in their full outfits, even if they are darker shades, it's just so silly. I have a really hard, it's very comic booky, but I was reading it and I had to laugh, because it's like, they're wearing their pajamas while they're being pallbearers. And I'm like, okay. Because otherwise it's a very Watchmen kind of scene. It is very Watchmen, yeah. And the other thing I wanted to mention was the speech Wonder Woman gives, the eulogy Wonder Woman gives. I'm a pretty harsh critic. I think I mentioned this back when we were doing the Highlander episodes. Yeah. I'm a fairly harsh critic when it comes to speeches. That wasn't a bad speech. It was okay. It was very much already there. I feel like it probably just needed a bit of fine tuning, and you pretty much had a fairly good eulogy, I thought. Where is justice, as she said while leaping into the Death Note musical. Really? But, so we go to Central City, where we get the CSI detective Barry Allen, aka The Flash, and his wife Iris eat lunch at Planet Krypton, a superhero-themed restaurant, while Wonder Woman addresses the UN on the news. I'm like, okay, Kingdom Come reference. Yeah, so that was, I guess, I should have mentioned earlier, but that's, at the beginning stages of reading the script, that's what I thought the script was going to be. I thought it was going to be this weird mix of DKR and Kingdom Come, and it's not at all. That would be awesome, though. Yeah, that's I was kind of excited. I was like, as soon as I saw Planet Krypton, and I'm going to hint at it, there's a line Aquaman says where I got really excited, because that is straight out of Kingdom Come. Oh, I forgot about that. It's been a while since I've read that. So I got really excited, but no, it's just a reference. So Planet Krypton, get ready to spend a full third of the movie in Planet Krypton.
Yeah, that is strange. There's like 3 scenes of them sitting there. I guess maybe that's a budget thing.
Had to have been.
Yeah, but they're eating there and like they're watching it because Wonder Woman, I guess, is the UN ambassador like she was in the Rucka run of the comics, but they don't really address that. She's
one last thing about Planet Krypton. I noticed Aquaman busboys.
That's pretty funny. They're the dishwashers too.
Yeah.
And of course, they're sitting there and they get the Flash as a waiter.
Oh yeah, with that terrible joke. Hey, Flash, make it quick.
And I was just imagining Steve Buscemi as the Buddy Holly waiter in Pulp Fiction.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one that was thinking about the Pulp Fiction restaurant.
Like, I think it's really funny that they describe this as being like a family restaurant and there's a fucking bar there with Martian Manhunter tending it.
Martian Manhunter is the bartender. That's great.
Just don't ask him to make a flaming Homer because the fire is his weakness. And so there's some banter between them where Barry is like, oh man, Wonder Woman, she's amazing. And that's the one thing this script makes sure you know about Wonder Woman is that she is
totally fucking hot, dude.
And everybody seems to have kind of a thing for her, except Batman and Superman. Like, I don't even know what the fuck Aquaman's deal with her is, because it's kind of weird.
Well, I actually have a note about that a little bit later, but I guess I'll go ahead and mention it now. I actually kind of like Aquaman. I've always liked the idea of Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman and Aquaman together. Yes, I know Flashpoint. We all saw what happened there, but there's no Mara in this script.
Yeah.
So in a universe with no Mara, I've always liked that pairing. I always thought that was pretty cool.
No Mara and no Dolphin in her tiny cutoff shorts.
No Aqualad.
No Aqualad.
Getting smothered in the crib.
You're the girl of my wet dreams. That is an actual line from the Peter David run of Aquaman, which those fuckers canceled the trades on. Like a couple of weeks after the movie made $1 billion. You fools. But no, he sees Dolphin for the first time. He goes, hey, you're the girl of my wet dreams. Because get it? They're underwater.
Har har.
And okay, so casting. Barry Allen would have been Adam Brody, who of course at the time was best known for the OC. And he was really good in Ready or Not. And he was in Shazam.
Yeah, that was weird. Who was he in Shazam? Was he one of the older kids? Like, yes. One of the kids that, like, one of the superpowered kids?
Yes, he was Freddy, the kid from It, when he became a superhero.
Okay.
Which, that's actually going to come back when we get to talk about another cast member, but we'll get there.
Okay.
Iris would have been Zoe Kazan, whom I mainly know for The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, the Coen Brothers Western anthology, which is on Netflix. That's worth watching. I mean, it's an anthology, so some of them are going to be better than others. But
yeah, I liked it overall.
Yeah, so I know her from that. So I like this casting.
Yeah. My question is, since Flash plays a very strong role in this, I got to be honest with you. I was talking to my wife about this. When it comes to Flash, I've always had a hard time envisioning him running. Like, I don't think they've really cracked that code yet. And like, when I read these scripts, I like to kind of like imagine it happening, see it in my mind's eye. But for some reason, I'm reading this thing and all I could imagine was like all the shots in the script where he's running around. All I could imagine was the end of the Flash episode from Smallville. Looks really bad and chintzy. Yeah, I'm really hoping that whenever they get around to doing the Flash movie, they do it. They actually crack that code and make it look good.
Yeah, hopefully. And Wonder Woman, I'll just mention her casting now because she was on the TV and so she's in the scene.
Yeah, that's fine.
And this is like a real short one to talk about because Megan Gale, she was an Australian model actress who Miller wanted mainly kind of semi-unknown people. And yeah. she got into that because the Australian Film Commission wanted a certain number of actors to be Australian, so he cast 3 Australian actors for the movie. It was her, Martian Manhunter, and Talia was an Australian actress as well. But so that was part of that. And Megan Gale has a very short acting resume. Like she's mainly a model. The only thing I recognize is Fury Road because she's the naked woman up the tower where that meme scene happens where Max is like, nope, that's bait.
That's Bate. Yep.
So yeah, Bate is playing Wonder Woman. I'd be interested in seeing what she would have done. Like, there's pictures of her in costume, and she looks the part.
Yeah. She probably would have been pretty good. My only real note on Wonder Woman, I only have 2 notes on Wonder Woman, like her character in the script. And that is, well, real quick, I probably should have mentioned this earlier. I'm not going to go into detail on this, but I think it's strange that when you think about Wonder Woman in movies, not characters that dress up like Wonder Woman or Wonder Woman on a t-shirt, but like Wonder Woman, the first time she was ever on the big screen was the friggin' Lego movie. And that's mind-blowing that we've never had a Wonder Woman movie until 2017. So that's just so odd to me. Because she's easily one of the most recognizable superheroes on the planet. Because
Silver Pictures couldn't make up their minds what they wanted to do with her, and basically, while this was in development, their version basically died. And
but it's weird to me that they didn't make one like back in the 80s or even in the 70s or even in the early 90s. Like, it's just strange that it took so long for one to even start developing.
I mean, even the Flash had like a script written in the 80s, which that thing was bizarre, but
But my only real note on the character as presented in the movie was she flies in the movie, which is in the script.
Yeah.
Which is, I looked into, because I was like, Wonder Woman can't fly, and then I looked into it and I was like, oh, I guess she can sometimes. Very schizophrenic.
It depends on who's writing her. She could fly in the Justice League cartoon.
Oh, okay.
Which it always looked weird to me, her flying. I mean, I'm used to Superman flying, but it looked weird, her flying in that show. I never quite got used to it. And from what I understand, in Wonder Woman 84, she gets both the invisible jet and the ability to fly, which seems kind of redundant.
Well, she can like lasso the clouds in Wonder Woman 84, which is kind of cool. Like, I like that from the trailer. I like that one image. I was like, that's kind of neat. I was always kind of partial to Wonder Woman doing the John Carter thing and doing like the Hulk thing where she jumps and can like dig her fingers into buildings and basically jump from building to building.
Well, that's basically the take on her in BVS and the first Wonder Woman.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, her flying is very strange, but it fits, I guess. Okay, so after the whole scenes with the Allens, we jump to Brother Eye, a satellite that is watching the Flash, and it's being controlled by Batman from the Batcave. And it's been designed to keep track of all of the other superpowered people in the world, and it's gathered detailed information about them, including weaknesses. And it's like there's like a scene of it like cycling through them, and you see like Clark Kent eating a bag lunch in a park, which is kind of funny.
What's Green Lantern doing? Isn't he like at a school or something?
He's demonstrating his powers for a classroom full of kids.
All I could think of was George Bush reading that friggin' book when 9/11 happened. I'm just like, and it should be noted that like at this point, the fact that it's Jon Stewart has not been dropped yet. It's just Green Lantern. So I'm like, I wonder if like they didn't think about it being Jon Stewart until later.
I would imagine it was like a Warner Brothers or DC mandate to use Jon Stewart because the whole Justice League cartoon, which used Jon Stewart, had just wrapped up. And so he was like still in the public consciousness at the time as Green Lantern. And
we'll get to Green Lantern.
And this is before DC started pushing Hal Jordan as the only Green Lantern.
Johns, yeah. When Jeff Johns was like, oh God, Hal Jordan is the best.
Oh, Jeff. But okay, so they're watching it and it's gathered all these detailed information, and Alfred talks to Batman saying, you're being paranoid, right? And Batman's going like, yeah, but what if, Alfred? What if they go bad? What if I have to make use of these recipes I have attached to their files? And Alfred's like, hey, there's a surprise birthday party going on for you upstairs, hint, hint. And so they get in the elevator to leave, and Brother Eye turns back on by itself after they've gone. Ooh. So Batman, as you might have guessed from my little joke there, was supposed to be Armie Hammer.
Cannibal Armie Hammer.
Who was 22 at the time.
Which would have been odd, because the implication is that, like, these heroes, it's weird because, like, what I read was, like, they wanted to go with younger, like, versions of these heroes so they could grow into being the heroes that we know. But then, like, it's kind of schizophrenic because then you get the impression that, like, the planet Krypton is around. So, like, clearly these people have been around for a while.
And they've clearly done some stuff, with Flash being, like, the only really new one.
Yeah, and they all know each other, which is odd, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, they were casting super young. It's not as weird as casting it for that Asylum Batman versus Superman script, because that is, like, old fucking retired Batman getting married and older Clark Kent getting divorced. And yet they were looking at, like, Josh Hartnett and Colin Farrell.
Really?
Really.
Huh.
It's like, that was a total disconnect from what the script was. But yeah, to get back on this, Armie Hammer, who I actually could see him as Batman, provided he doesn't eat the rest of the cast.
Yeah, I actually, surprisingly enough, I had a really easy time seeing Hammer as Batman while I was reading this. Like, the whole time, I actually had Hammer in my mind as Batman, and I'm like, the more I thought about it, the more I read it, I was kind of warming up to the idea. I'm like, okay.
And Alfred, I learned from reading comments on Unicom's Instagram posts, would have been Stephen Tobolowsky. Have you seen Memento? Sammy Jankis.
Oh.
So I could just imagine him turning to Batman and going, "Test this, you fucking quack." He was also in Groundhog Day. He was the annoying guy, and he was like, "Don't say you don't remember me, because I sure remember you." Yeah, that's different casting for Alfred, but I'm kind of interested in seeing how that goes. That'd be interesting to see. So they go back up, they get in the elevator, and Batman is like switching back into Bruce Wayne mode in the elevator up to the mansion, and he's like shaving his stubble off because he's just been sitting at that computer for days, it seems like. He's like that guy from that South Park episode with the World of Warcraft.
Yeah, the Turbo Nerd. Yeah.
Jenkins.
Yeah.
And so we see the party. It's interesting they're doing a birthday party here because Batman Begins had like just come out, and that had a birthday party for Bruce Wayne in it.
Yeah, and somebody shows up at that birthday party in Batman Begins it's similar. It's weird, right? Because like I'll just go ahead and wait a second.
Yeah, I'll have to talk about it too, because that's a weird thing I've read some rumors about, and I want to mention before I go on. The first draft was turned in July of 2007, June or July of 2007. And unfortunately, we don't know when this is dated because whoever scanned this was a dick and didn't scan the title page. You fool.
God damn it, TB.
It's okay. So he gets off at the party, and it's this insane party, which I don't know how they figured this would be a surprise. It's massive. There's all these super wealthy people from around the world. There's like fucking oil sheiks and a sumo wrestler. It's fucking the entire 1%. Like
it's the end of Eyes Wide Shut all over in Batman manner.
Only without the sex. But it's like everybody showed up for Bruce Wayne's party. And I'm just imagining him getting off the elevator and going, looking at the sumo wrestler going, "Alfred, hibachi." I am going to run that joke into the ground, and I can't help it because it's just such a weird. If you don't know about Armie Hammer by now, just check Twitter. People are like talking about it. But we'll leave it alone. So among them is Maxwell Lord, who regales the guests with a joke about how, we spent all these millions of years evolving just so we could come to Bruce Wayne's stupid birthday party. Everyone laughs at, but it's not that funny.
No, and he's actually giving the speech while Batman is shaving and preparing, and he's talking about like all the years of perfection to create this and blah, blah, blah. And
yeah.
I get what they were going for, but yeah, it's not. The dialogue's pretty rough here.
I mean, maybe because he's super rich and powerful, the women are just kissing his ass because he's talking to a bunch of hot women is what they say.
I think that was the implication.
But
yeah.
that is one thing this script does, is that it likes to intercut scenes to an annoying degree.
Oh, we're just getting started.
And like to the point where it made, like, I mean, it's not something I would mind if I was watching the movie, but taking notes on the script made it really annoying. It's like, so should I mention this now, or should I just wait to mention it with the rest of that scene? And Maxwell Lord would have been played by Jay Baruchel, who was in a bunch of comedies, and like probably his most famous role was in Tropic Thunder.
What is it? Put it back. What is this? Put it back in.
And so the Blu-ray HD DVD wars were won by a combination of gamers and porn. Have you been talking to me this whole time? So that's an interesting casting choice. On the one hand, I like seeing like actors who are known for comedy kind of do these kind of outside the box roles, because it would be kind of interesting to see him play a role straight. But then at the same time, I'm thinking, Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. Nah.
Well, as written, it wouldn't have been that.
It would have been that, and there's some silly shit in this script, but it wouldn't have been that.
Yeah.
But he's like going like, ha ha ha, like laughing. But it would be an interesting characterization. But so Bruce gets off the elevator and he fakes being surprised. So I actually would like to see that acting moment to show that Bruce Wayne took acting classes or something.
Oh, that's right, because there's that weird bit of in the script where Alfred's like, now smile, and Bruce does like this really unconvincing smile, and all I could think about was the Terminator 2 Arnie smile.
Yeah, that or the scene in that Batman the Animated Series episode where he smiles and laughs, and Harley is like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
And so as he gets off the elevator, we go back to the Brother Eye computer, which is turned on. And it homes in on Denver, Colorado, targeting Detective John Jones, a.k.a. John Jones, just spelled with apostrophes and Z's, the Martian Manhunter, whom... Okay, first of all, it's interesting that they used the Detective John Jones identity because I'm pretty sure that had fallen out of use by this point, but I'm not positive because the only place I've seen that is in the New Frontier, which is deliberately hearkening back to the Silver Age. And I don't think he was ever in Denver. I think in the Silver Age, he was in like some fictional town. And in New Frontier, he's a Gotham detective, which explains why a Martian could just fake his way into becoming an Earth detective, because Gotham don't give a shit.
No, Gordon was like, oh, we need cops. You're hired.
Yeah, it's like he says...
Are you on the take? No? Okay, you're hired.
It's like what he says in The Dark Knight. I have to work with what I got. Harvey Dent's just like, I'm investigating this new detective of yours. You know he's a Martian, right?
It's results, damn it.
But no, and also he would have been played by Hugh Keysburn, a.k.a. the Toe Cutter, a.k.a. motherfucking Immortan Joe.
Well,
he doesn't really do much in this script, but that casting would have been amazing.
Yeah, that would have been interesting, because the only thing I know him from are those two movies. I think he's in Babe, or one of the Babes. But that's the only thing I know him from. So I have, it's weird. It's one of those things where I can't see it, but I'm not against it.
I'm currently watching through Farscape in a series of Twitch watch parties, and I know in a couple of weeks he's going to be in an episode.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, because already, I mean, Rigel is played by a random bit part actor from the first Mad Max. So yeah, that's my weird Farscape tangent.
Now what's interesting is I don't really know. I mean, I think it's really cool that Martian Manhunter is in this, because that's not one of the characters that I would have thought would have been in it. But my impression, so like knowing not a lot about Martian Manhunter, my impression was that when he's in human mode, like when he's a human, he's an African American.
I don't know where that came from, but he's also often voiced by African American actors. I guess that's where that came from, because I mean, in New Frontier, he's a white guy.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so when I read Toe Cutter was going to play him, I was like, wait a minute.
So he's visiting a rail yard in his unmarked police car, and he finds a jar with a seahorse-like creature inside it, and he examines it as he's getting into his car, and I don't know why he's examining this thing as he's about to drive away. It's weird. But it sprays him with an oil-like substance, which causes him to burn uncontrollably, because Martian Manhunter's weakness is fire.
Just like everybody else.
Yeah, and there's a scene later on in the script, he goes like, they discovered my weakness to flame. I thought it was unassailable. And I'm like, if I were trying to ascertain every superhero's weakness, I would start with fire and work my way up.
Yeah.
I would stress test some Martian cells and see how they react to fire. Now, his weakness to fire, I know, is a weird thing in the comics where sometimes it's explained it's a physical weakness, sometimes it's like a weird psychological thing, but it's silly.
Well, I thought fire would just kill him dead. Like, I thought fire was his, like, red kryptonite. Not red kryptonite. Whichever kryptonite is that just, like, will fucking kill Superman dead.
I don't know which does not. Which.
But I was going to ask about the seahorse. Do they ever, like, this was weird, because it's like, I read the script, this bit, a couple of times, and it's like, he just it's like, takes place in, like, what, like a quarry, or like a warehouse district, or
it's a train yard.
A train yard, yeah. And he drives up, and he just gets out of his car and walks over to where it is, look the flashlight.
They do explain why he knows it's there.
Okay, they do.
He briefly mentions that he got a note saying to go look in this place.
Oh, okay.
And
it's a throwaway line of dialogue.
Yeah,
okay,
and they do explain why they made it a seahorse. They too, because it's basically a ploy for them to go to Aquaman for help and then draw him out.
Right.
So yeah, there's weird things in this I didn't pick. I've read this a few times. There's weird things in this I didn't pick up on. But no, it's a weird thing that they go. And he tries shape-shifting to put it out, but nothing works. So basically what you learn about Martian Manhunter in this is that he's a Martian, he shape-shifts, and he's weak to fire. He's one of the characters who could do with a little bit more introduction.
Yeah, I would agree, especially because, like, not a lot of people like, the broader audience wouldn't have any idea who this guy is. And like, everybody knows Wonder Woman, Flash, Batman, and Superman. Most people know Aquaman because of Super Friends. Green Lantern's pretty well known, but Martian Manhunter is, like, one of those things where it's like, who?
And I would say, even with most of those, people mainly just know the image.
Yeah, true.
And, like, I mean, Wonder Woman, as much screen time as she has in this, you learn nothing. You know she's an ambassador of some sort, and she occasionally mentions a Greek god or two, and you know she's really super strong, she can fly. There's no mention of Themyscira. There's no mention of Amazons, I don't think. It's all very, very vague. And we know some of this stuff was introduced because there's concept art that's been shown where she's flying towards what looks like Themyscira. So that was presumably fixed in rewrites, but as it stands, it's just like she's an ambassador, she's super strong, and she's super hot.
Yep.
That's one of my major flaws with this, is that Wonder Woman, I love Wonder Woman. I am actually a pretty big fan of that character. Admittedly, my favorite run is kind of a controversial one, but I love the new 52 Azzarello run because it's Wonder Woman meets Clash of the Titans.
That's cool.
In grimy, gritty Brian Azzarello fashion that gives no fucks.
Yeah.
And it's controversial because it retcons some stuff about the Amazons, and like people don't like that, and I fully understand it, but I love that run. So I'm reading this, I'm like, I wish we got a little bit more background on the character, especially since this is drawing so heavily from stuff written by Greg Rucka, and there's hints towards his run in this, his Wonder Woman run, this like the whole ambassador thing. But that's all gone. Flash in this, you get a good amount of. Batman you get, but people know Batman. Superman they do a little bit with, but you know Superman. So it's really Wonder Woman and Martian Manhunter and Green Lantern to a slightly lesser extent kind of get shortchanged.
And I guess Aquaman, but I mean, they say there's not much to Aquaman. It's like they explain who he is when he shows up, and that's really it.
But I mean, you at least, yeah, but with Aquaman you at least see Atlantis.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Yeah, you get, but I mean, with Wonder Woman, it's like nothing.
Yeah.
But okay, so we go back to Bruce's party where he talks with Lord, and we get the idea that they're reasonably close friends, so he's kind of like the Hush of this universe.
Ooh, that's a good way of putting that. Yeah, I guess he is.
Only not stupid like the Hush storyline kind of is.
He's a great concept.
Great concept, but man, Hush is basically Long Halloween, only not nearly as good.
I do, as a quick aside, I do like what they did with Hush and Batman Beyond. If you haven't read any of those comics,
no,
the Batman Beyond, I will not ruin it for you because it is good. The Batman Beyond follow-up comics with Hush is very, very interesting. Don't ruin it for yourself. It's great.
But the closest I've gotten to reading a Batman Beyond comic is Morrison's run. He does this weird story which involves time travel, and it takes place across 3 different heroes: Bruce Wayne Batman, Dick Grayson Batman, and Damian Wayne Batman. And it does this crazy shit at the end where it just starts jumping further and further into the future, and you see Damian is the one who trains Terry McGinnis. You know, the Damian Batman who possibly is the Antichrist and will end the world because Grant Morrison has to shove a bunch of weird shit.
Right.
But okay, so he's talking with Lord, and we find out that Lord catered the party from his Planet Krypton restaurant. So it's all these rich people essentially sitting around eating fast food. And Bruce is like, yeah, it's really weird. And Bruce is like, I'm not going to eat this. I don't eat food with names. Except when they're people.
I only eat ribs.
Yeah. Flying ribs.
But yeah, that was odd. Like, that was, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, Maxwell Lord owns Planet Krypton. Huh.
Yeah, that was an interesting flex.
Yeah.
So we go back to Central City, and Iris is kidding Barry about his weird Wonder Woman thing. She's going like, "Oh man, Superman, super hot," which is really funny.
You know,
I really like Barry and Iris in this. The whole Flash side of this script is generally pretty good.
Yeah, I would agree.
And so, they're kind of teasing each other, and they catch a news report about the fires in Denver, and I'm like, isn't that kind of far away for the Flash to be dealing with? Aren't there problems in Central City for him to be solving? But, I'll let it go. Because there's fires in Denver because Manhunter's car is going all around the place. It crashes into an oil depot at the airport. And Barry...
Oh, yeah, he's just going raging fireball across the city and state. I can only imagine, like, visually how, like, unintentionally funny this could have been.
Flame on. But so Barry, he twists his ring to enter his costume, and he runs off to help, and it is actually a scene where this is a running thing, and I like this repeated bit of dialogue, where Iris says, you can't save the whole world, and he says, sure, but I can save just the part with you in it. Which, that builds up to a really great payoff.
It's a very good payoff, yes.
And so he runs off to Denver, he arrives on the scene, and he puts out the fire by running around it in a circle until the oxygen is sucked out, so that's Flash's go-to move, at least the Barry Allen Flash. I've not read a whole lot of Barry Allen. I've mainly read Wally West. But it seems like one of the Flash's go-to moves is run back and forth or run around in a circle.
Gotta run faster than he's ever run before. That is every Flash story.
That is every fucking episode of the TV show, because the CW series, it's like, the first season it works because it's Eobard Thawne basically prodding him and going, Barry, you have to get faster, because he needs him to be faster. And then by the time you get to season 2, it's just ridiculous because speedsters who literally just got their powers 5 seconds ago are faster than he is.
Yeah.
But so he's there, he gets rid of the fire, but then a firefighter almost gets sucked in because he's kind of an idiot. And then Wonder Woman
almost kills the guy.
Wonder Woman flies in and saves him, and he's like, wow, you're Wonder Woman. Your pictures don't do you justice. So we get more of the super hot thing. And this is really funny. So now Martian Manhunter has started trying to fly away, and so the fireball just goes zooming by them, and they both, take off to go get him, and like Flash is like, I'll handle this, you hang back, and she's like, hang back? And then they just run off, and they both go off.
Yep.
And so Wonder Woman snags him with her lasso, and they hear him telepathically ask for help, and he's just going like, Flash is just like, you hear that? And there's this really stupid line from the Flash here where Flash is really good for most of the script, but occasionally they give him a really stupid line of dialogue. And this one, he's like, isn't he supposed to be green?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just on fire. Aren't you supposed to be a scientist? Or is the standards for education just that low on the Central City Police Department? So, okay, we go back to Wayne Manor, and Talia arrives at the party, and this scene is very weird. Lord starts talking to Bruce about how, Talia Al Ghul, don't you know her? She's the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, the demon's head. So, and it's like, so that he keeps saying, so they say, like this is like an urban legend from like 20 years ago.
Three times.
Yeah, they say she loved the Batman and that she betrayed her father to him, but then he walked away. So they say. And this entire time, Bruce is like enraptured, almost like he's in a trance, like he's just so taken by the presence of Talia, he can't help it. There's a subtlety here I missed on so many different drafts, so many different reads of this script, because Maxwell Lord's nose starts bleeding. There's a thing with post-crisis Maxwell Lord where I'm going to have to give this away. We're going to get to it later. He has mind control powers, and when he uses his powers, his nose bleeds. So he is mind controlling Bruce to act really weird and horny here.
Okay, so when I was reading it, I thought he was mind controlling Talia, but I guess it would make more sense that he was controlling Bruce. So, yeah,
because later on, Talia's like, that stunt you pulled, that's dangerous. You could have found us out.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So I guess he's testing it on a resolute will, like Batman, so that he can be sure he can do it for the thing he uses it for later. But it's never really addressed why he does this in this scene, other than just to be a dick.
And I want to point out that yet another Batman birthday party, yet another Al Ghul shows up.
Yes, exactly. And what's weird is that he has like a flashback in the middle of this to him going like, Talia, you could never have what you want from me. I could never commit, blah, blah, blah. And then it says it's like, what, like a year earlier? So he just leaves. There's a flashback of him leaving her behind. Now, Talia Al Ghul would have been played by Teresa Palmer, who's another Australian actor. She's probably best known for Warm Bodies, the Nicholas Hoult zombie movie. So that's another Fury Road connection.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I've seen her in The Grudge 2, where all she really does is prance around in her underwear. Yeah, but she's done stuff. She's been around. I don't think she's a bad actress, really. She's just never really had a break.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really to gauge her acting with, I guess, except Warm Bodies, which I don't remember that movie. I thought it was a cute movie, but like I don't remember the intricacies of the acting going on there.
I remember she was. I just think it is a very odd choice when you think about to cast a blonde white Australian as Talia Al Ghul, because at least Marion Cotillard has got like the dark look. She's got kind of that swarthy look. Oh, I'm sorry, I just spoiled Dark Knight Rises.
A little bit. That's fine.
Everyone's seen that movie by now, pretty much.
Weird that they would bring Talia into it. It makes sense because I know in Tower of Babel, which is the whole Batman's plan going wrong. It's not Maxwell Lord that is the villain in the actual comic book. I guess spoilers. It's Ra's al Ghul is the main villain.
Yes.
In that. So I guess it makes sense they bring Talia in, and I have no doubt they didn't want to use Ra's again because Batman Begins had just come out. But
it is weird. I've heard, because I read like a few very, very long Justice League Immortal threads on superhero hype, because you can find so much shit there that is like missing everywhere else, like articles that have disappeared. You can find quotes and stuff. It's it's time consuming, but it's very worthwhile looking into that stuff. And there's talk that apparently the reason why they had Talia instead of Ra's is because when Warner Brothers first commissioned this, they hadn't decided whether or not they wanted this to be in continuity with Begins.
Yeah, I see that.
And I don't know if that's true, but it would totally make sense, even though this does not line up with Batman Begins at all. Because Talia does not exist in the Nolanverse until 2012.
Yeah, and it's interesting that like Maxwell Lord knows about the Ra's al Ghul Batman fight, and it's like, because that wasn't. I guess that was a public thing that like a public knowledge, or mostly public knowledge in this universe. Whereas in Batman Begins, like nobody would know about that, and in the comic books, nobody knows about that either because they have their big epic duel in the desert.
Well, I've not actually read that Denny O'Neil stuff yet, but
that's really good.
I'm guessing Talia told him.
Yeah, I know, but it's fun. Well, I guess if Bruce was mind controlled, he wouldn't be thinking about it. So
he's saying that while he's doing the nosebleed thing, and also he could have just hacked into the Bat computer and got that information.
Fair enough.
And also, this is a very strange take on Talia Al Ghul because it's almost like she has no real strength or agency to her whatsoever. Like, she's a very, very weak and pliant version of Talia Al Ghul, which is weird because I'm used to the Grant Morrison version of Talia Al Ghul where she is just pure evil.
Yeah, I had some problems with this version. She is very much I'm trying to think of what the term is.
Doormat.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, she's not. It's strange. I mean, it's strange they would even use her. Like, I don't. It's whatever. Well, fine. They have to come up with something, and I don't want to spoil it yet, but there is like a plot twist involved with why they used her. But I don't know. It's fine. It's just very underwritten. A little it's a little
undercooked. No, I still think my favorite version of the whole Bruce Wayne Talia thing is, I don't know if you've seen the episode of Batman the Animated Series, because she meets him in one episode, and then the next time she shows up is when he meets Ra's, and Ra's is just like, my daughter, she has strong feelings for you, detective. And then he looks over at her with the funniest fucking, like, wide-eyed expression on his mask, like, huh? And I think that's the furthest that relationship ever goes. It's just like, it's like, she has great affection for you, and he just looks over at her.
Since you briefly mentioned it, I do want to say the best version of the Ra's al Ghul Batman fight is the animated series when they fight like next to the volcano. That's great.
That is like that show is like almost the best version. It's the best version of almost everything Batman, except for Bane. He kind of sucked in that show.
Yeah,
and the Catwoman episodes were pretty lame. But moving on. But Bruce snaps out of it when Alfred arrives, and everyone is now singing Happy Birthday. And the butler pulls him away from the party, telling him about the attack on Martian Manhunter. And Bruce then sends everyone home, you sycophantic suck-ups, drinking all my booze.
Phonies, you fakers, please leave.
It appears the apple has fallen very far from the tree. That scene's great. Like, that's totally a Goyer scene in that movie, but it's great. And so he sends everyone home, and he says because he wants to go back to the Batcave to look into this. And then Flash and Wonder Woman, they have moved Martian Manhunter to her conservatory in New York. Now, Wonder Woman and her locations and her supporting cast change with every single writer. So it's off Central Park, and it's kind of analogous to the Themysciran Embassy in the Rucka run, because I think that was also off Central Park, but this is a much bigger building. Like, this is much more like, it's like that combined with the fucking apartment building from Ghostbusters. Because this is like, it's like a tall skyscraper with like glass on top. And, you know, they're keeping Martian Manhunter immersed in a bathing pool. So yeah, he's sleeping with the fishes for most of this script.
An apparently Olympic-sized bathing pool, because it's like I was trying to get a handle on how deep it was, but apparently it's like a giant like pool she's got, and I'm like, oh, nice.
And I'm guessing he has shapeshifted some gills onto him. Or am I overthinking this?
Well.
But okay, so he telepathically tells that, and so Superman arrives, and Martian Manhunter telepathically tells him about how he followed a note to the bottle, and that was a sea creature of some sort that attacked him, and whoever was behind it knew about his weakness to fire, because that's so hard to figure out. And Flash is going like, I've got a few theories here, it could be this, could be that, could be magnesium, but I'm thinking it's nanotech.
Nanomachine, son.
Yeah, I was going to make Hideo Kojima would love this script. But I like, even though I'm not sure how he came to this conclusion, I like the fact that Flash is allowed to be the scientist. And, you know, he's thinking along these lines and figuring stuff out before anyone else has. Because that fits with his character. And so Superman is here and he's talking to Wonder Woman. And I like how their relationship is described, because they're not a couple, but they're very, like you get the idea that they're very close and they're on a first name basis. And he is with Batman as well, we later learn, but it's interesting that Wonder Woman calls him Cal and Batman calls him Clark.
Oh, you know what? I didn't pick up on that. That's kind of cool, actually.
And I don't know what that distinction actually means, but I like how you get the idea that they're not a couple, but they're two very close characters here.
And Flash is just over there watching them in awe.
He's going like, are they a thing? And Martian Manhunter is passed out.
Yeah.
And so Superman is like, I'm going to go ask Aquaman about this weird seahorse thing, you know, the horsey. And then Flash is like, oh, I got to get back to Iris, and he vibrates through the floor. Fun fact, vibrating through objects, I think, is a power that Wally West first developed. And for most of his run of the comic, when he vibrates through something, it blows up.
Well, I was going to say that, okay, so I do have a note about that. I thought that was really cool, the way he's like, all right, later, and then just drops to the floor. That was kind of neat. Like I'm always happy when they do something a little bit out of the box with him. Like he didn't just like speed out. Like he didn't just run down the building or something. Like he actually did the molecule vibration and dropped to the floor. And I'm like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, but I think, I know that he could do that from back in the Super Friends days, because he used to do that to get out of jail cells and stuff.
Okay, I could be wrong about that one then, but I do know Wally has an issue with it, which I'm going to bring that up later because there's a weird vibration moment in this. And okay, so Superman has shown up, and he's kind of backgrounded a bit in this script, and I've heard that once again, that's something because Warner Brothers didn't know if they wanted this to tie into Superman Returns or not at first, so that's why he's kind of very much a supporting role here. But his presence is felt, and you do get like enough about him as a character.
Yeah, I mean, I've always imagined it's kind like Superman's kind of hard to do in these group stories a lot of times because he is a god. Because he's a god. He's Hercules. Like you can't, like you have to get smart with how to deal with Superman, or else he'll just solve the problem. So it kind of makes sense why he disappears for a good portion of this script. Like it's not clever, but it's serviceable the way they kind of get rid of him for a while. But I guess we'll get to that.
And he would have been played by DJ Catrona, who was one of the miscellaneous extra Joes who survived the assault in G.I. Joe Retaliation. So he's like the least interesting of that group, but that's mainly just because it's like you have The Rock and you have Tim from Jurassic Park. So yeah, he's in that, and he also took over. He was in the TV version of From Dusk Till Dawn, playing the George Clooney role, and I've heard he was actually pretty good in that. So yeah, that's interesting. He also hasn't done a whole lot, but he also turned up in Shazam, playing one of the super kids.
Yeah, so we got two in there.
I mean, I don't know why they didn't just get this entire cast to play the super kids, if I'm being honest.
Oh, that would have been hilarious.
Like, fuck it, here's Toe Cutter as one of them.
Here's Toe Cutter as Shazam himself.
God, that would have been amazing. No. So yeah, that whole thing happened. So that's interesting casting. I don't know how he would have turned out, but, I'm open to see how it would work. And so we then go to Lord, and his lair is so weird. I did not pick up on this description until this reading. His lair is inside a partially built skyscraper. The description, the only way I can make this make sense in my head is that it's like Nakatomi Plaza, but in reverse, because the top 3 floors are finished, but nothing else is.
Yeah.
How does that work exactly?
Well, you can tell where his priorities.
Yeah, it's like he saw that passage from the Bible where Christ is like, you don't build from the roof down, and went, I'll show him. And that clearly did not survive the drafts, because there's a concept art of a scene that happens later, and the building is just a regular building. Okay, and so he's watching 12 TV screens, each showing a kid with their dates of death projected on it below them. And they're all real young. They're all from like ages of 7 to 12. And he looks at one named Jonah Wilkes, and he says, Jonah, it's time to begin. So, ooh, mysterious. And that's specific.
Very Watchmen-esque.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. And it's very specifically in his archive chamber, it says.
Yeah.
And so we go back to Barry, he's in his police uniform, and he arrives home. He's apologizing to Iris and preparing a huge meal. And it's mentioned that they have 2 industrial-sized fridges in their house, because that's a Flash thing where, because he moves fast, his metabolism is faster, so he has to constantly be eating. So they do remember that. Then she's like, hey, Wally's here. Did you have a point about that scene?
Oh, no. They really hammer that in by the end. But go ahead.
Yeah, they army hammer it.
Enough of that.
And so she tells him, hey, your teenage nephew Wally is here. And so Wally has arrived, and he meets with Wally in the garage, it's a converted garage. It's now a den, and there's all kinds of stuff in there because, the Flash doesn't need a car.
I guess he wouldn't.
I don't know if that's the idea, but I like that as a world building thing. But we find out that Wally also has super speed, which they don't actually explain that here, and I don't blame them, because Wally West's origin story is really stupid. Do you know Wally West's origin story?
No, I don't.
Okay, so what is Barry Allen's origin story, right? He's in his lab.
Yes.
He gets struck by lightning and coated with chemicals, and that connects him to the Speed Force. Okay, in Wally's origin story, he's giving Wally a tour of the lab and explaining what happened, and right as he says, don't worry, lightning never strikes twice, it does.
Oh my, number 1, oh my god. And number 2, when did Wally become a thing? Was it in the 80s?
He was a thing for a long time because he was Kid Flash.
Right. So, has Wally been around since, like, the Silver Age?
He would have to have been.
Okay.
Because
I guess that makes a little bit more sense, because that was before comic books started making sense.
Yeah, because that was back, but they kept that origin around in the expanded origin story Mark Waid writes in the Born to Run miniseries. So, yeah, which was in the 90s. Like, all the big Wally West stuff was 90s, pretty much. But so, Wally's there, and they do some cool stuff where they challenge each other to a game of ping pong where they're playing with both hands and 6 balls, and Barry loses. And all this stuff is really good. The great character building here for the relationship.
Yeah, it's a cute little scene. Did you see who was going to play Wally?
I did. I'm going to talk about that in a second as soon as I'm done with the scene.
All right. No problem.
And then he goes, hey, Wally, you're good with computers, right? He's like, look into now technology. Tell me who's interested in it, who has access to it. And I'm like, oh, they're doing 90s hacker tropes in 2007.
Yep.
But no, Wally West would have been played by Anton Yelchin, which is so perfect.
Chekhov himself.
That's so perfect, and it's a shame he died so young.
Yeah.
But
that would have been good, though.
It's really interesting how in just a couple of years they went from Goyer, who very obviously wanted Ryan Reynolds, to Anton Yelchin.
Yeah.
And think about this. This is pre-Star Trek and though no one remembers Terminator Salvation anyways, Anton Yelchin.
Yeah, this was 2 years before any of that, so...
That was kind of his breakout year.
Yeah. So if he was in anything up to this point, it would have just been indie stuff.
And that is just such great casting. I can just see that.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Yeah, that's the one casting in this where it's the others are I can kind of see it. This one is yes, this. And all right, so Batman, back in the Batcave, Batman is observing the Manhunter situation with Brother Eye, while Lord, along with Talia, is observing him from his lair over a screen. So this is like some Spaceballs movie in a movie shit.
Yeah, really.
And Lord then types initiating phase 1. So Iron Man is about to come out. And so we're in Gotham City, and a biker gang attacks some motorcycle cops, and like knocking them off their bikes and generally wreaking havoc. And it's interesting that this is because Batman's watching this from a rooftop, and he goes, "When we have world peace, when will Gotham get the message?
When will they learn?"
And that's what's really funny about this, is that they even say crime is down in Gotham. We have world peace, and yet Gotham is still fucked up.
Gotham will always be a shithole. It's a cool little, this action sequence, though, I do like.
Oh, it gets fucking hilarious when they just pelt him with bullets, and apparently his cape is bulletproof, and he just shakes the bullets off and goes, "That was a brand new cape."
It's also shockwave and explosion proof, apparently.
Yeah, it's that moment is very Johnny Cage. Those are $500 sunglasses, asshole.
Yeah.
And so he just methodically takes all of these guys down, except for one who's called the Runt. So that's Babe. Yeah. So he makes a run for it. And we cut away to Superman, who visits Atlantis, which in this version, it's located... Yeah, by the way, I cut away there's like cutaways between scenes here, and this was like before the motorcycle scene, but in my notes, I just avoided the cutting back and forth. So it's in the Aegean Sea off Santorini. So this is buying into the theory of where Atlantis would have been located, which I won't go into because usually Atlantis in DC is in the Atlantic Ocean. And so he goes down under the ocean to apprise Aquaman of the situation, and it's not really addressed how Superman is breathing underwater. Do they have like the bubble thing from the Justice League movie? I don't know.
I mean, Superman can fly. Superman goes out to space. Like, he doesn't have to breathe if he doesn't want to. I'm willing to hand wave that one.
He can make you forget stuff by kissing you.
Fly around the world and turn back time.
Yeah, that stuff. And so the King of Atlantis, he hates the superhero name he's been given. He's like, "I've come to their aid time and time again, and still they dump their crap in my oceans." And he's like, "I've sacrificed much." And he holds up his hand. His left hand is missing, and he has a magic water hand, which I have to talk about this because I'm an Aquaman fan. And I haven't read this, but there was a period in the 2000s where he got rid of his harpoon hand, and he replaced it with a magic water hand, which he got from the Lady of the Lake. And that was a very strange run from what I understand. And so they're kind of mashed together a few eras of Aquaman here, because this is also kind of the Peter David Aquaman, where he was very much a loner and kind of pissed off all the time. But there he kind of had good reason for it. Here he's just a dick. And in this, he calls himself Arthur, but he doesn't seem to have any connection to the surface world.
Yeah, you get the impression that just Atlantean. There, like we said earlier, there is no Mera. I got really excited there but by this point in the script, I knew that it wasn't going to go this way. But I got really excited there for a second when he was like, "I will not be your Aquaman." And Superman's like, "Okay, King Arthur then." And it's like, oh, that's almost a direct line from Kingdom Come. And that interpretation of Aquaman, even though he's only in Kingdom Come for one frame, I think, that's my favorite interpretation of him. Like, I've always liked the idea of Aquaman being like, Aquaman is dumb. Like, that's a dumb name. I'm a fucking king. I own 2/3 of this planet. All right. And I like he has the hand in this so he can control water. And that's interesting because I can't name any off the top of my head, but I do know that there's been a couple of times where when he, now Mera is the one that controls water.
Yeah.
But like back in the day, I think this is like during the time when Mera was dead. When the fucking Black Manta had killed her.
No, she wasn't dead. Black Manta killed Aqua Baby, who they were still calling Aqua Baby, even though he was 5 years old. And she went crazy.
Okay. But I know that with his water hand, he could control water. And I want to say there is a bit in one of the runs where he actually makes Superman kneel. And I thought that was really cool. That's one of those images from Aquaman that I always really love, because I'm like, it's Aqua. If he can control water, then he is the strongest person on the planet.
Yeah, and what's weird about this, about whether he's fully Atlantean in heritage or not. So first off, if he's like denying like the surface world, he should be calling himself Orin. And this is kind of like the Peter David version, where that's the version where he is fully Atlantean. And they cast him out as a baby because they have a prejudice against blondes. And until his teenage years, he was raised by dolphins. And they broke the subject of his actual parentage to him because his dolphin mom had to tell him that you can't take your dolphin girlfriend as a mate because you're not a dolphin.
Oh my god.
I can show you the panel when we're done.
Oh no.
And he's raised by a guy, and then like he gets taken in by like this fisherman named Arthur Curry, who names him Arthur Curry after himself. But it's like they don't have a real strong connection. And then there's the weird thing where in that version, Ocean Master, whose parentage is different with every reboot, is the one who is half surface dweller. And he's like the son of the same Atlantean father who's this weird sorcerer guy I won't get into, and like an Inuit woman. Yeah, Aquaman has like soft rebooted so many times. And like but I do think the Jeff Johns status quo will stick.
Yeah, I mean that's the best one so far. I mean, I would say.
Because as much as I make fun of like Jeff Johns writing The Flash and making Hal Jordan into Jesus Christ of the DC universe, and we gotta bring Barry Allen back to life, and his Superman is all fanfic, his Aquaman is fantastic.
At least from what I've read, which is the first 25 issues, including the Justice League event, was great.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's all of Johns' Aquaman.
So I like it.
Because the Batman 66 guy took over after him and did a pretty good job. But yeah, so that's your history lesson in weird ass Aquaman lore. But and he has like a couple of dolphin bros in the Peter David run who occasionally show up to help him.
And he would have been played by Santiago Cabrera.
Who I don't know him from anything.
No, I don't know who that is.
I mean, I looked at his IMDb page and nothing rang a bell. So maybe he would have been good. I don't know.
Give me 1 second. Let me take a look real quick.
Yeah, that's worth taking a look at, because everyone else I can at least run down something they were in.
Well, he was in the the only thing I see the only thing that he's been in that I've seen is Transformers: The Last Night.
Oh yeah, and I don't remember his character in that at all. But that was a really terrible movie, so I don't want to remember it.
Oh well, he's in. Apparently, he's part of the main cast in Star Trek Picard. And I mean, he's been in a good amount of stuff, fairly good. So I mean, the guy gets work.
I'm guessing he's that. I'm guessing he's playing the guy who's basically Han Solo. I've not watched it, but I've heard some stuff about it. But he's basically Han Solo, and Picard is like, "You are the soul of the Federation." And I'm like, but then again, we're expected to think that fucking Janeway is the soul of the Federation. So I don't know.
No, not Janeway. Never Janeway.
All right, so Aquaman goes on his I'm an underwater douche kick, but he finally agrees to Superman. Superman's a good enough diplomat that he's like, okay, I'll come up and look at your evil seahorse thing, even though they don't actually have the seahorse. I don't think. They just have John Jones is on fire.
They just take his word at face value. Yeah.
No, it probably burned the shit in his car. It was a special soluble in fire seahorse that Maxwell Lord invented. So, okay. But he agrees to come because she's going to be there, the princess. Ooh. So once again, another character who thinks Wonder Woman is just the hottest.
Yep, that gets Aquaman's attention.
Yep, and so Batman, who, by the way, I didn't think to mention, there's totally bikers in this because of George Miller.
Oh, man. Yeah.
But
wow, so those stunts would have been even crazier than they are in the script. Because in the script, one of the ways the biker takes out, I think, one of the cops is he has there's bad guy bikers and cop bikers, and one of the bad guy bikers comes up behind the cop and wraps a chain around him or puts a hook in his shirt and drops a cinder block on the ground, which just rips the cop biker off his bike. I thought that was a pretty cool little action beat right there.
Yeah, and then the Doof Warrior just rides in on his massive speaker car.
Yeah.
With his flamethrower guitar. But okay, so Batman, he's chasing the runt, and he chases him into a movie theater, and they're like, it's like there's people watching the movie, but they manage to fight around the actual showing room, and it doesn't specify if this is supposed to be the movie theater, if this is the Monarch Theater. But it probably is, considering it's described as being like an old movie palace complete with a chandelier.
Yeah, you know what? I hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, I guess it probably would have been.
But it's Batman just wrecking this guy's shit and like bursting through doors and shit, chasing after him until they get backstage. So I'm just thinking of Gremlins at this point. Well,
what's funny is I've worked part-time at a movie theater. So I'm reading this and I'm like, there's no friggin', number one, I've been behind the screen in a movie theater. We have a very large screen. And it's like, I've been behind that. There's no way any of this, like, that people would have, not noticed this. But then I kind of went on a thought tangent there, and I was like, well, wait a minute. The people are watching a 3D movie. Like, that's the audience that's watching is watching a 3D movie. So I was like, I wonder, okay, so it's Warner Brothers, and I'd like to believe they were watching, like, something that has, like, name recognition. They weren't just watching some made-up bullshit movie for the movie. So I did a little bit of digging, and the only two movies that I could find that were, because, you know, this script predates Avatar, which was kind of the big, you know, 3D boom again. Yeah,
at the time they were starting the 3D thing, but it wasn't. I mean, this is even before Journey to the Center of the Earth, which introduced the digital projection, which is what kind of made it technologically possible to take off like it did.
So I found, and what's interesting, so I started going back, and I was like, well, maybe it'd be kind of cool if it was like a throwback movie or something that they were watching. And Warner Brothers really didn't make much in the way of 3D films. Like, that's not until post-Avatar, really. The only two that I could find that were before or during the development of this script are very interesting. I think you're going to get a kick out of this. The only two that I could find were Happy Feet and Superman Returns.
Superman Returns was in 3D?
That's what the Wikipedia article said.
I had no clue. So obviously they would have been watching Happy Feet.
That would have been great. I also would have, even though I know this is a different company, I would have really loved it if they were watching either Friday the 13th in 3D or Jaws 3D.
Or Beowulf.
Oh, no.
But yeah, it is kind of, I mean, the whole backstage area, maybe it's something that's possible in like those old movie houses that were like live theater and then they just put a screen up.
Yeah, and I would imagine if the movie's loud enough that they probably, and I'm sure that because they're like, Batman and the Runt are kind of and razzling each other back there, so I imagine it probably would have intercut back and forth between the audience and them, and there probably would have been like, I can imagine that the music during the sequence probably would have melded into the movie the audience is watching. I think that the sequence is actually kind of neat, maybe not so much in the way that it's written, but just like, for possibility's sake, I think it's kind of a cool little beat.
So they end up backstage, and the Runt is suddenly taken over and transformed into a blue cycloptic robot called OMAC Alpha. So this is our first hint towards the OMAC plot. And the robot fights Batman to a standstill and beats the living shit out of him. Essentially, like they crash into the seats and stuff, and people are like, "Oh shit, this 3D is way too good."
Yeah, they come through the screen, Sandlot style.
and like it peels his mask off, and then it goes, subject decommissioned, terminate, and it goes to Maxwell Lord and Talia, and Lord is like, he's controlling the OMAC, and Talia's like, you said you wouldn't kill him. And it's like, and he's like, fine, I only wanted to embarrass him to know that his precious secret isn't so. His precious secret is just this close to getting lost, essentially. So he's being a bit of a, he's on a bit of a, either he is just going like, oh, I'm totally trying to shine this guy on, or oh, I'm just fucking acquiescing because Talia won't shut up.
Oh, okay, yeah, I think that's what the implication was, but I also love the idea that he's just having so much fun, and he realized how easy it would be to kill Batman.
Yeah.
But he's like, oh, no, I can't, no, this is too much fun, I can't do it right off the bat.
Well, he can't have meant to kill Batman here, because he needs Batman for his plan later.
Okay,
yeah,
well, still.
His plan is very serpentine. But so the OMAC, but so the OMAC is shut down, and the robot pieces fall off the Runt, who stumbles away the days. Yeah, it's a donut hole within a donut that's missing a bigger hole. If anyone understands that reference.
I didn't get that one.
It's Knives Out.
Oh, okay, yeah. Huh.
So Aquaman, who rides 2 bottlenose dolphins like a jet ski to get there. I guess those are his 2 dolphin bros from the comics. They arrive in New York to examine Martian Manhunter, but, he can't figure anything out. And so the Flash arrives and meets him as well, and the Aquaman just gets completely exasperated with his enthusiasm. And there's he's shaking his hand. He goes your hand, it's made out of water, huh? Man, it feels like a wet hand. Does it do anything cool? It's a hand.
It's a hand.
That's actually a pretty funny line.
Yeah, I love how you could almost taste the disappointment from Flash, where he's like, "Oh, that's so cool! It's a water hand. That's neat." And then let me touch it, and then it's oh, it's just like a clammy wet hand.
Yeah, and I'm it's a weird it's a weird pull considering that was a current. No, I am super confused about Aquaman's continuity around this point, because at some point they reboot the series with a different character who is also named Arthur Curry.
I'm not gonna. Yeah, I don't know, but I do know that I do not think that was current. I by 2007, I'm pretty sure he had both his hands back.
Yeah, and then he got restored for good in was it Brightest Day?
Well, as a quick aside, it was piranha, right? Isn't that didn't somebody force his hand to get eaten by piranhas?
Yeah, I think his name was Charybdis, and he basically blocked out his telepathy, shoved his hand into a river full of piranhas, and they pull it out, and it's just been eaten away by the piranhas to a skeleton.
See, I like the idea of Hook Hand and even Water Hand Aquaman. It's actually kind of cool. That is just dumb.
I'm waiting for something like that to happen in Aquaman 2.
Oh, yeah, I think it will happen.
Yeah, Amber Heard just goes crazy and chops his hand off. Go get shit in your bed, Aquaman. But okay, Sue.
Oh my god.
We go to the Batcave. Batman watches footage of the OMAC attack. He's watching his DVD copy of Justice League Immortal, and hears it refer to itself as OMAC Alpha, and he uses Brother Eye to search for information on it, but the computer denies him access, locking him out and telling him he isn't in control anymore. And it literally pulls up a giant message that fills the entire massive screen saying, "You are not in control anymore."
It says, "You don't control it anymore," in big red text. And I like that. Actually, I thought that was really cool. I could see that being in the trailer. I think if you shot that particular scene, the way that you would shoot that, if you shot it well, I don't know. I didn't get chills or anything reading it, but I was ooh, that's kind of cool. That's a really neat visual. So I dug that.
And this is when we get introduced to John Stewart, aka Green Lantern, who is using his ring to work on his architectural plans for the Hal Jordan Memorial Park from his offices in the Empire State Building. And it's a really cool idea that he's taking his 2-dimensional plans, making a 3-dimensional version of them and seeing what works, what doesn't.
Yes, absolutely. I agree 100%. I love the idea of being an architect. That's not in the comics. He's a soldier in the comics, right?
He was originally just an architect, and then the cartoon introduced the ex-Marine thing, and people liked it so much they put it in the comics, I think.
See, I thought I'm pretty sure he served in Nam, when he was first introduced. So I think the soldier aspect had always been there. But okay, wow, that's cool. I didn't know that the architect stuff was part of Stewart's background. Yeah, that's really neat. And LOL, Hal Jordan is fucking dead. Makes me wonder if not Flashpoint. What's it called? Zero Hour is a thing in this universe. And
Jeff Johns reads this script and goes, "Kieran, you did it! You killed him." So Hal Jordan. I guess the final night happened here.
Yep.
Which that has a weird tie-in to the Mark Waid Flash run because that shit's going on. There's an entire 2-3 issue arc where Keystone City is just covered in snow. But that whole thing. So that happens. But I have to mention a lot of my information on the Green Lantern stuff came from this very in-depth. I didn't know the word podcast yet at the time, but I guess it was a podcast episode right around the time the Green Lantern movie came out, where these guys were going into this huge detail about Green Lantern's history.
I have a I have like a folder, I guess we could say, on my hard drive that is a collected like I don't know if it's handpicked, but it's basically a chronological perfect reading order of, I have one for Batman too, but one for Green Lantern. And I've always wanted to dive into it. I love Green Lantern as a character, but I haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet. The only stuff that I've really read from Green Lantern is, of course, I've read the Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams run, the classic fucking Speedy on heroin run.
My ward is a junkie!
Which is great. We could talk about that run for hours.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not gonna. And I read the what was it called? The one that when they were rebooting everybody in the 80s, Green Lantern had one, and Hal is hilariously stupid in that one. Hal's always been kind of a dummy.
Is that
one is
that Emerald Dawn?
Yes. Yeah, and it's like, oh god, that one's worth a read. It is not boring. It is highly entertaining, but it is not a good depiction of Green Lantern.
The Green Lantern stuff I've read has been various crossovers into 90s Flash stuff with both Hal Jordan and Kyle Rayner so far. And I've read the Jeff Johns Green Lantern Secret Origin, which this is probably the funniest shit I have on my shelf right now. Is that I've had this thing for a decade. It is Secret Origin with movie tie-in cover art and the forward by Ryan Reynolds.
Oh.
But no, and it's a really cool little scene in the script here because he has little like green kids playing on the playground in the park, and he's like adjusting it so they can play on the equipment. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Now, the casting for Green Lantern, it was going to be Common, the rapper.
Now, I am a white suburban kid. I grew up white and suburban, so I don't know. I don't know any rappers outside of Wu-Tang.
I don't know rap either. I just know who some of them are.
Yeah, but I know that he has been in movies. Like, I'm pretty sure he has, like, he's one of the rappers that kind of crossed over a little bit.
Yeah, he crossed over, and at the time, I can see why people would have been trepidatious, because I don't think he had done much yet in terms of acting. But since then, he's done, like, some good supporting roles and stuff. He was in that, he played a bad guy pretty well in that Liam Neeson movie, Run All Night.
Oh,
like,
okay.
he's almost one of the main bad guys chasing down Liam Neeson, and he played a very noticeable supporting role very well in John Wick Chapter 2.
I haven't done the John Wick sequels yet.
He's really good in that. Like, they basically there's like this really cool scene where they're fighting and then they fall down. It has to be the longest staircase in the universe.
Yeah.
But no, he's really good in that, so definitely watch the John Wick sequels, you fool.
Okay. I'll get to that.
But no, so he actually has turned out to be a fairly good actor, so I'm actually on board with him doing Jon Stewart Green Lantern, and we're not going to make any Daily Show jokes.
I thought about it, and then I was like, that's the fruit is so low hanging, it's on the ground. So
he's had an even less distinguished acting career.
Hey, he was in The Faculty.
He was in Big Daddy, Death to Smoochie.
Oh God, yeah, he was.
Yeah, but so back at the conservatory, Aquaman apologizes for being unable to help, saying he has to get back as he's been dry for too long. And I'm like, oh, this whole the weakness of Aquaman's where he can only be out of water so long before he starts to die. I'm pretty sure that's been gone in the comics for a very long time. And in the New 52, I think it comes up once, but he's literally in the desert when that happens, miles away from the ocean, so it makes sense he would be dying.
Well, he's dying because he's in the friggin' desert, yeah.
Yeah, and here it's longer, because in the comics it used to be if he was out of the water for an hour, he would die.
Yeah, I was gonna wait on talking about the various ways I'm open to whenever you want to start talking about that, we can. But I was gonna wait on that because I think it's hilarious that like some of these like Flash, I'm not gonna say what it is yet, but Flash has a really good one. Like the way that the OMAC project kind of or that Brother Eye fucks him over is really cool, I think. But then, and it's like the one for Green Lantern, which we're getting to, is pretty good. But then there's Aquaman, which is like, oh, he's just randomly afraid of water. And it's like they try to explain it away a little bit and say like it attacked his amygdala, and it's like this is so, oh god, like you couldn't have come up with anything better. Like, I mean, I get that that's what they did in the comic, so props to them, but also like it wasn't good in the comic either. Come on.
Like, you could massage his brain and make him, like, paranoid and hating of surface dwellers, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I mean, they didn't even need to draw out Aquaman. They could have just left him where he was and he wouldn't have done shit.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But I like Aquaman, so no, I want to see him more in the movie.
Yeah. And so Aquaman, speaking of which, he apologizes for being unable. Yeah, I already said that part. He gets bit by a robotic mosquito, which injects him with nanomachines, son, which makes him deathly afraid of water, flinging his water hand across the room. And Barry sees the scene and he goes, now that's creepy.
Yeah.
Flash, you're an idiot. Like, there are moments in this where it's just like, shut up.
Oh, there's a great, I'm going to wait for it, but there's a great little one-liner towards the end of the script that I loved. I actually laughed when I was reading it, so we'll wait on that.
Yeah, but eventually, as he's like freaking out, he like goes, hey, Martian Manhunter, use my magic water hand and it can be a shield to, encase you from the air so you don't get set on fire. So that was, a nice move of his. And one thing I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. No, I was going to say is that as he's apologizing to Wonder Woman, I like how their relationship is described, that it's not just an oh, she's hot thing. There's mutual respect between these two warriors.
Yeah, that was good.
But make your point.
I mean, as far as like the water going over Martian Manhunter, I'm like, that would have been, I mean, I guess by 2007, I guess the effects would have been there. I assume that they would have done a thing where like the initial like water covering him, you see the effect, and then maybe it turns perfectly translucent, and it's just implied that it's there.
And maybe they like cut the green, they cut down the color a little bit of his body.
Yeah. But that would have been, and wait, I actually forgot something. Earlier when Aquaman arrived, no, I'm sorry, okay, cut that out, I'm sorry, that happens later.
Okay, no, but also, I think it's kind of funny that he smacks a robot mosquito and doesn't notice that it's a robot.
Yeah.
That is kind of funny. But, I mean, you say the special effects would have been there in 2007, but in 2011 they weren't there. Yeah. And then, And so, at roughly the same time, Green Lantern, he's in his office, which, by the way, is in the Empire State Building. So is he down the hall from Doc Savage?
What?
But yeah, he chews his draft pencil, which infects him with nanomachines that affect his sight. And it causes like a buzzing sound in his head. So that basically it makes him freak out so he can't concentrate and his powers go out of control. Which, I mean, if he loses his concentration, wouldn't the ring just turn off?
It blinds him, I think.
Yeah, it blinds him, and he mentions that like there's like this like ringing in his head that he can't focus.
Yeah, and one last thing about the effects, this scene right here where like he starts going nuts. Rereading it when I was taking my notes, wow, that would have been pretty cool, I think, because the way it's described is like the green, like it's kind of a dark room. Because like he's using his lantern ability to kind of like play with the like his little architecture project, and it's like the tendrils coming out and stuff. And I'm always down for like a subtle bit of horror in my movies.
Yeah,
and that would have been fun. I'm like when I was rereading it, I was like, oh, actually, this is kind of a neat little scene.
Yeah. Also, there's a line with the Aquaman thing where it's like, oh, he's afraid of water, and Flash is like, that can't be good for a fish.
Oh, I know. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and mention that real quick. Aquaman starts out real cool. I loved it. Like, Kingdom Come style. And then as soon as he gets there, we're talking about Super Friends Aquaman again. Like, he is made fun of, and he gets no respect for the rest of the script.
Except for Wonder Woman, who almost becomes like a motherly figure to him.
Yeah.
Like, she's like cradling him in her arms and stuff. Okay, but yeah, so the heroes, they then see the commotion over at the Empire State Building, and Superman and Flash, they race off to help, and I guess it would have broken the budget to show what they do there, because we don't see it.
Right. I actually have that written down, too. Like, would have been cool to see them rescue Lantern, and that Okay, one last thing, and then we'll move on. That would have been a cool scene too, like where they look out over the city and they see like the lantern like tendrils like coming out of the Empire State Building. Like that would have been really cool.
Yep. And so Batman, he's helplessly watching this go down over the computer, and Alfred, he's like, Alfred, turn on the backup computers. How many, sir? All of them. And so Lord, on the other hand, is back in his archive chamber, and all 12 screens now show images of Jonah Wilkes, and he's talking to the screen again, where it's just like, okay, weird. And so we go back to the conservatory, and Green Lantern has been brought in. He's blind and unable to focus, which I believe that is what the whole taking him down thing was in Tower of Babel was.
Yes. This is very, very accurate. I mean, like, in terms of the way that they dispatch the superheroes, this is very accurate outside of two characters, and that is Wonder Woman and Superman. And
we don't learn their weaknesses in this. We don't see the contingency plans.
For Superman, I think. Oh, no, I guess we don't. Yeah, and we definitely don't see it for Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's the only one that's not affected.
Yep. And this is where I should mention that they also adapted this storyline to the animated movie Justice League Doom, which is okay. It's not something you're going to remember. And the whole Green Lantern thing, because they changed him to Hal Jordan, because by that point Jeff Johns had become like the head honcho at DC and was like, no, we gotta use Hal Jordan in everything. They make it this weird psychological thing with Star Sapphire, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, okay. Is since is Aquaman in that one? Like, do they do anything different with him in the movie?
I don't remember if Aquaman is in it or not.
Okay. All right.
I just remember they changed the bad guys to Vandal Savage and the Legion of Doom.
Huh.
So it's the bad guys teaming up against the good guys, and you have like Bane buries Batman alive or some shit. Like he lures him out by digging up his family's corpse and then buries him in the grave.
That is what happens in the well, we'll talk about that when we get there, but that is more or less what happens in the comic as well for Batman.
Yep. And so we go back to the concern. Yeah, he's been brought in, and the heroes start speculating as to who could be behind the attacks and how exactly they're doing it. And they're going like, Fear, it could be Scarecrow. He's in Arkham. Lex Luthor, I put him in Stryker's Island. And they mentioned the Penguin, and they say he's in Arkham. And I'm like, you do know the Penguin isn't a crazy person, right?
What the fuck would Penguin do? Like, I don't really see this being a Penguin master plan. Yeah, you know what I mean?
But also, Penguin would go to regular prison because all he is a gangster. He's a short, fat gangster who likes birds and umbrellas. They're not going to put him in Arkham Asylum.
Right.
So yeah, they're like, oh yeah, it could be this guy. And they mentioned a lot of supervillains here. That's kind of cool. And Flash just runs off to go check on them. He goes like, yep, they're all locked up. So they say, oh, it must be someone new. And that's what's kind of weird about this script is that it still plays out like a mystery, yet the audience already knows who's behind it.
Yes, I agree with that.
It's a little awkward, but it's because they're adapting things, and because I believe it was a mystery in the comic, and they've kind of, they have to like set up the OMAC thing because they're bringing Maxwell Lord into it, which is probably better than the weird plot of Tower of Babel, where it's Ra's al Ghul trying to make people's speech unintelligible.
Which they do nothing with in the comic. Yeah, which is a cool concept, but yeah, they don't do anything with it.
Now that is saying if Grant Morrison wrote that comic, it would be the only thing they talk about.
Yes.
And it would be like, the speech bubbles would be arranged in a specific way, which is symbolic of like the history of comics men. My horrible Scottish accent, I'm sorry. But okay, so they're chatting about that, and Batman has determined that whoever is behind the attacks is exploiting their weaknesses, just as he would have done, and Alfred is like, dude, go tell them. He's like, no, Alfred, not until they're all weak and I can eat them. And I want to find out who OMAC is first and eat him too. That's the point. And then Superman goes, well, we've been attacked here, but we could be safe if we go up to the Fortress of Solitude. That's a really smart idea. So they go up there to hide out and regroup. Nobody really knows where it is. He's never taken anybody there. And it could serve as a safe haven for the time being. And Flash quickly runs back to his house to check on Wally, who has uncovered some old Defense Department and CIA files on the OMAC project, and is currently, trying to get them open. So holy crap, Wally West is such a good hacker, he's gotten into the CIA and the DOD.
On a cell phone, apparently.
Yeah, like, what? Bit of lazy contrivance in the writing there. And I do like how Barry is like, Wally, don't tell Iris what's going on. I really don't want her to worry. And so
and it's coming up.
Oh, no. But yeah, so he's still looking into it, and he also has his own makeshift Flash costume, which is loose and doesn't really fit, but Flash is just like, no, I don't want you doing this. I don't want you getting hurt because Iris would kill me. And then Flash stops in to see Iris before he leaves again, and they do this thing where she's standing up, and they do this weird sex thing where he vibrates straight through her and then catches her as she falls back. She says, don't tell anyone we do this. What the fuck was that?
Yeah, well, I
were they like testing, Warner Brothers standards and practices to see if they could get away with this?
I don't know. I don't know what, like, I mean, okay, all right, okay, fine, like, sure, that's fine, but like, what?
I mean, this would explain why they were so eager to take in Wally West and could never have kids of their own, because they never got their damn clothes off. They just did the vibration. Which is even funnier, because in the comics I've read, Wally West can't vibrate through anything without making it explode. So just imagine that result.
Oh, God.
And something is even funnier before we move on is there is actually like an audio, like a fully acted out audio version of this on YouTube, like really good. And they actually bring in actual like theme music from the movies. And like it's beat for beat the same. They just leave this part out.
Oh, wait. So it's like an audio version of the script or just the scene?
Of the script.
That's kind of cool. Oh, I didn't know that. I might look into that. But they leave this scene out? Why? This is the best part of the script.
They just do the part where he kisses her and then he just kisses her and then he leaves in that version. I'm like, it's like even they went, that's too much. And the Flash then catches up at the rest as they head to the fortress. Superman and Wonder Woman are flying. And and like Superman has the lasso of truth wrapped around him. And that's towing Martian Manhunter and Green Lantern. And Wonder Woman is carrying Aquaman like a baby. Like the La Pieta.
Yeah.
I would love to see this movie just for that hilarious image. And so they arrive at the fortress. It's in the Arctic, and you had a point about that when we were talking earlier.
Yeah, I'm used to... I always thought okay, so number one, it's in the Arctic, so there can be polar bears, but there are none, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, John Peters was nowhere near this.
I'm sorry, low-hanging fruit, I know.
Yeah.
But I always thought the Fortress of Solitude was in the Antarctica, but what you were telling me was it's a little schizophrenic. It's like it's wherever wherever the writer wants it to be at any given time, I guess.
Well, I don't know where it is, like pre-crisis, but I know in the Donner movie it's in the Arctic. It may have been in the Antarctic when they because initially post-crisis there is no Fortress of Solitude. It's a poetic way to describe the Clark Kent identity. It's his Fortress of Solitude where he's by himself.
Okay.
Because John Byrne very heavily scaled back a lot of Superman stuff. And eventually they do reintroduce it. I think it's in the Antarctic, but I know when Jeff Johns does his Action Comics run, there's that Last Son of Krypton thing where he brings in Zod, who's basically a movie character anyways. And they create a fortress in the Arctic, and it looks just like the Donnerverse fortress.
Crystals.
Yeah. But so they get to the fortress, they go inside, and there's giant statues of Jor-El and Lara, as well as an exact replica of the Kent farmhouse, and Flash is going like, oh, he's homesick.
Yeah, no shit, Flash.
That was it. That's a nice little character moment for Superman.
Yeah, no, I like that, and I think that could have been kind of cool. Like, I like maybe I'm going a little off script here, but like I could see maybe it's just the house that he built, and then maybe as you get closer to it, maybe there's a hologram-esque effect. And then, when you pass a certain boundary, it looks like you're in Kansas from the outside.
Yeah, but
if you're sitting on the front porch or something, it would look like Kansas. That would be really cool.
A couple of observations. It's them being in the farmhouse saves on the budget.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Interstellar a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil the scene I'm talking about, but you know what I mean. And It also reminds me of Kingdom Come because he has that recreation of the family farm he's living in when he's in seclusion.
Yeah, he does.
Because Kansas went boom.
Oh yeah. God damn it, Magog.
Yeah, and they go into the house, And here's, I think this is probably the last of the really stupid Flash lines where he looks at Wonder Woman in her outfit and goes, "Aren't you cold?"
Yeah.
But okay, so
there's another one coming up.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I don't know if I wrote it down or not. Also, by the way, Iris made him take a cell phone with him, and he's keeping it in his boot because it would make his costume look lumpy.
Which is someone that is married, I have to say, is very, very accurate.
Yeah. Okay, and so Lord uses Brother Eye to locate the heroes. He's searching up and down, but isn't able to find them. And Batman has found information on the OMAC project, and here's a bit of comic lore here. It says it stands for One Man Army Corps, which, when Jack Kirby created the OMACs in the 70s, that's what it stood for. It means something else in the more modern stuff that this is based on, but I like that they kind of folded that element in here.
Yeah.
And it was a super soldier program in World War II with like power armor, which as we all know from Duke Nukem, is for pussies. And it moved on to psychic warfare in the 70s, but they would send psychic warriors into the jungle and they would all die. And so there's more to it than that, which you'll learn about later. And before eventually shifting focus to robotics in the 90s before getting shut down in 1999, presumably in anticipation of the Y2K bug. And Batman recognizes OMAC Alpha, though, in some of the footage he's watching before seeing Brother Eye home in on the fortress, and he rushes off in the bat plane to warn them. Yeah, it's not the bat wing here, it's the bat plane.
And all I can think of is the 1930s bat plane, which is just a biplane with a really bad, like, homemade papier-mâché image of a bat head on the top.
So the rest of the heroes are all sitting around in the farmhouse, and Aquaman is in particularly bad shape, his skin flaking off. And Flash, like he does throughout this thing, he's talking and he says, "Oh no, I'll stop." But then they're like, "No, keep going, it actually helps." And so Flash is talking to them. He's asking Green Lantern about his powers. And Green Lantern says, you can't actually use the ring because you have to be chosen, and it requires the strongest will and the bravest heart, which is a decent enough summarization without going into the weird green is the color of willpower, blah, blah, blah. Which I think that had like literally just been introduced by Jeff Johns at this point, so they may not even have known about it.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about like Flash's dialogue throughout this script. His banter is pretty good, actually. Like as far as whatever version of this, like whatever draft of the script is, it's pretty good. This was the one of a few points, but I think like this was the one where I was like, oh, this was really bad and forced.
Oh, you're talking about the thing that's coming up?
No, I was talking about like him like joking and shit and like was it Aquaman that's all like, no, it helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like that. Like, and I mean that's not that bad that's not a deal breaker. Like just change some of the dialogue around, but like it really like stood out.
Yeah, that was noticeable. This would have been a nice point for like to get a little bit of explanation of Green Lantern in here. Like he could have mentioned the Guardians or something like that.
Yeah, good point.
Because as it stands, you have no idea that his powers are space-based at all. Like, he could just be like Green Lantern, the guy who looks after Harlem or whatever. I'm Daredevil, and I look after the 4 fucking city blocks that are Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
and then this segues into the Flash talking about how when he goes fast enough, there's a moment where everything stops, and that's like the ultimate peaceful moment for him. He talks about how much he loves his powers. Because there's a moment where Green Lantern talks about like sometimes the responsibilities of his powers are a burden, and Flash responds by talking about this, and they're like, "You've gone past light speed?" He goes like, "No, I haven't gone that far yet, because I just have a feeling that if I pass that light speed barrier, it's going to be a one-way trip." And like, oh.
Hint, hint.
Yeah, like, I mean, and that is the thing in the comics that Wally discovers about, because the Speed Force comes in the Wally West stuff. That did not exist in the Barry Allen comics initially.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of the Flash mythology stuff is from Mark Waid. And the whole thing is that the Speed Force, they call it, it's like a Valhalla for speedsters, where all the speedsters will eventually, pass that barrier and join, become one with the Force, basically. And so Lord is watching this, like Batman, lands his plane there, and Lord is watching as this happens, and then decides to target the Flash, going through Iris to do it. And you're like, oh no, is he going to kill her? No, nothing that simple. And so Batman is like, he's telling the heroes they're all in danger, and he explains about Brother Eye. It takes him forever to actually explain this. Like, it's very like, let's talk around what I actually mean to say kind of dialogue.
Yeah, very much so.
Very CW in that sense.
The dialogue here is very, very bad.
And so he's like, oh, it's me. It's been hacked by someone with malevolent motives. But he doesn't know where the satellite is exactly, as he kept the coordinates hidden even from himself, which is such a Batman thing to do.
Oh, actually, I just want to mention, I have in my notes, because I just glanced over to my notes here, I actually have, God damn, this dialogue is bad.
But, and there comes like actually a pretty good moment where Superman is actually angry, and he picks up Batman and kind of holds him up against the wall, and he goes, I thought you were nonviolent. And then Wonder Woman flat out punches him in the face so hard he falls over. And she goes, yeah, but I'm not, which is going to be really kind of stupid later on.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, I don't know. Like, I wonder, if when they were writing it, if the intention was to do the air quotes plot twist from the comics, as far as Maxwell Lord goes with Wonder Woman. And then maybe they decided not to. I don't know, like, cause like that particular line of dialogue, really said, I'm like, okay, so they're gonna do the thing with Wonder Woman and Maxwell Lord, but I guess not. So, okay.
That's strange. And so he gets knocked down. It reveals he has these braces on his arms and legs, which are there because of the injuries sustained in the OMAC fight, and also a little bit like Kingdom Come.
A little bit, yeah.
And Batman then reflects on how helpless he was against the OMAC and doesn't know why he was spared. That's one thing I like about Batman in this script. He gets these very, like, introspective, humanizing moments where it's like he knows he's not the Bat God he's often made out to be.
Yeah.
And he goes like, you have to all split up. Like, they designed this thing to draw you out and get you all together. That's what I would have done. And that's when Flash's phone rings, and I'm mixed on the joke. Like the awkward cell phone ringing. I'm like, what? Where it says it's like a hip hop beat.
Does it say that?
Yes, it says a lo-fi. Levy. Oh wait, this is a scan, so I can't search it's gonna be on like page 61. Hold on, I'm gonna head there. Suddenly there's music, a lo-fi hip hop beat. The Flash remembers, pulls Iris's cell phone from his boot. So yeah, that happened. And so he picks it up. Batman's like, don't answer that. And he's like, no, it's fine. It's my wife. And he picks it up, but she's not on the other end of the phone. Instead, a nanoprobe, it's a technological tendril snakes into his ear and around the base of his spine, attaching a nanoprobe to it. Now, I have to say, if it's big enough to latch onto the base of his brain, it's not nano. Like, if you can visibly see this thing get stuck in his ear, it is not a nano machine. It has to be microscopic to be a nano machine.
Well, yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Well, I'm guessing the tendril wasn't microscopic, but, like, I mean, that seems like kind of a big thing to hold on to if you're microscopic.
Comic book movie.
Yep. And so, it causes him to vibrate uncontrollably straight through the Earth to Antarctica, and because he has momentum, by the way, when he pops out of Antarctica, there's some emperor penguins there, you know, haha, George.
Yeah.
They're probably all fucking singing in annoying voices, too. Okay, so, and then because he still has momentum, he falls right back through, straight up to the fortress again. He's basically going to go back and forth, until his momentum dissipates. He gets trapped in Earth's molten core and dies, essentially.
I love this. And so what's weird about this is, I was like, okay, yeah, I remember this from the comic, and I'd forgotten the intricacies of Tower of Babel, but I do remember, I love this. Like, I think that's a really, really clever way to kill the Flash. Like, I like that, and I think that this, out of all of the, traps for the Justice League in this script, this one is the best one, and I think that this would have been a lot of fun. I think that he's a little like, there's like a joke that he says, like, oh yeah, he's like, he goes through the planet, and which, I mean, would have killed him, but just comic book movie.
Well, he's vibrating through it, so he's not touching anything.
Yeah, fair enough. But he pops out through Antarctica, and then like the gravitational pull of the Earth pulls him back down, and he like has a little quip where he's like, he looks down at the Earth and he's coming down really fast. And he's like, oh, this is gonna leave a mark.
Yeah.
And then he goes through it, and it's like I could have gone without the quip. I mean, it's a cute little quip, but like I could have gone without it. But like I really like this. Like I was all in during this scene.
Yeah, this was very cool. And Wonder Woman, basically, she catches him with her lasso and she says, Hephaestus, don't fail me now. And there's an earlier scene where she says, by Hera. And so that's really the only context you get for Wonder Woman in this is she mentions a couple of Greek gods.
Yeah.
But that's it. And so they managed to catch him with the lasso and hold him in place. And Martian Manhunter is like, I saw something go in his ear. And they're like scanning him and they find the nano probe attached to his brain. He's like, I told you it was nanotech.
Yeah, really.
And then Martian Manhunter I guess Martian Manhunter has X-ray vision?
Sure.
Yeah, I was a little confused by that, but it's like he sees one in Green Lantern as well behind the visual cortex, and they do eventually find one in Aquaman, which is, behind his amygdala. So he's got a little Batman villain in his brain. Seriously, there is a Batman villain named Amygdala, and I only know who the hell he is because he's in Nightfall.
What? Wow.
Because it's like all these villains have broken out. Scarecrow, Mad Hatter, Joker, Two-Face.
Oh yeah, no, I've read Nightfall. I just don't remember him.
Amygdala, film freak who only exists for Bane to fucking murder him off screen. Yeah, I started reading that, rereading that recently and reading some of the tie-ins for the first time.
Oh God. Well, enjoy your cinder blocks.
Well, I'm reading digital.
Okay, all right.
Because I mean, annoyingly enough, when I read it through the first time, the trades that were out at the time didn't collect everything, and okay. they collected even less than the ones that came out around the time of Rises. Like they skipped like the entire middle portion.
Yeah, I haven't read any of that since it came out because that was during the middle of Nightfall when Bruce was like, paralyzed from the neck down or whatever, and he was going off to save Tim Drake's father. That was unfortunately that's when I started reading Batman as a kid. So, wow. That's
weird. But all right, so they get the idea to get Green Lantern to make surgical tools with his ring and Manhunter guiding him with his telepathy. And that's a really cool use of powers.
I would say, like, this whole scene is like, it's not really played up for like any kind of horror effect in the script, I don't think. But like, boy, seeing that would have been there. I mean, like, it wouldn't have bothered me, but like, I know some people in the audience would have been freaked out by what's coming up.
And the whole surgery scene is written really intensely too.
Yeah.
And so Batman, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Where the tentacles go through his nose and into his mouth.
Oh,
and his
yeah.
ears, and it's like, oh my God.
And so Batman goes to leave. Superman follows him to confront him about what happened. And he says that this dialogue is really on the nose. He's like, you've lived too long in the dark, and the Caped Crusade retorts, half of every day is night. And if I didn't exist, you'd have to create me so I could eat the people you don't eat.
Oh my God.
But yeah, the eating part I made up, obviously, but the actual line was just as cringe.
Yeah, it's not. This is... I would say that this is the point in this, like, everything we've read up until now has been pretty good, and it's been fairly well written. And I think that, actually there's a point coming up where I think it really goes off the deep end, but like, this right now, I think is the beginning of, okay, they were, like, I feel like up until now, they've really got a handle on the writing. And then this is where the writing, just not just in the dialogue, but like in the actual script itself, like in the scene descriptions, begins to crack a little bit. And this is where the bad writing begins.
Like it starts getting very sentence fragmenty.
Yeah.
Not
hard, a little hard to follow too.
Not the worst example I've seen of this, but it's
no,
it's unfortunate.
Not by a long shot.
It's unfortunately very common in scripts. Especially current scripts, because it's all about, making it read quickly, whether or not it reads like a fucking crazy homeless person wrote it. But,
wow. Yeah, a little bit.
But yeah, so, back inside, Aquaman is now comatose, and Superman blasts the pool in the ice with his heat vision to immerse him in while he's out. It's like, okay, he's comatose. We're just gonna drop him in the water anyways. I mean, he might freak out, have a heart attack, and die if he wakes up, but, he'll be wet again.
actual lines of dialogue in the script.
Close enough. And so, with great effort, Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter, they surgically remove the probe from the Flash's brain. And Manhunter then scans Aquaman's brain, finding one against his amygdala. So yeah, that's the thing we just talked about. And then he himself has nothing in his brain, theorizing that it must be bonded to his skin. And the Flash suggests something akin to a dermabrasion, which makes sense and shows that Flash is actually smart.
Yeah.
So the Flash heads for home. He says he's going to analyze his own probe in his lab, and Wonder Woman offers to go with him until he can regain his strength because he was wasting, because of his super metabolism, he was wasting away to like flesh and bones.
Which would have been like kind of a cool, like not cool, but it would have been like an interesting thing had they, like an interesting like, because he's like this for like a couple of scenes, not too long in the script, but he's like this for a little while. And I'm like, what if they actually like digitally made?
But yeah, I agree. It would have been pretty cool. Okay, so Superman, he flies off into space to go looking for Brother Eye and destroy it. So proactive Superman. I mean, there's a fuckload of satellites up there, though. But so while flying the Batplane back to Gotham, Batman talks to Alfred, who manages to get access to Brother Eye again, and there's a file on Batman, and Batman didn't make a file for himself. So, what does it say? And it labeled, this was fucking dumb. It labels his weakness as love. And
love!
And there's like a flashback montage of like, it's described as happening in the space of like a split second of all his previous lovers. It's like everybody, and Batman going
Julie Madison, Silver St. Cloud, Vicky Vale, Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and finally, Talia.
I wouldn't really call Poison Ivy a love interest. It's more like she mind controls him and rapes him. But
yeah, so what that's kind of interesting because like if okay, so like assuming, let's just say they went with this, right? And you like that's a shitload of cameos just right off the bat. So it's like I don't know, like I'm like, well, who would have they got to play Catwoman for one scene? One shot? Who would have they got to play Poison Ivy for one shot? Like that's kind of fun.
And I mean, I should know. I actually know who Silver St. Cloud is because I've read those comics.
That's the one from Batman R.I.P., right?
No, that's Jezebel Jet.
Jezebel Jet, yeah.
Silver St. Cloud is from the 70s run. It was the Steve Englehart run where the Laughing Fish comes from, and it was a huge influence on the animated series. And right. she is the one who finds out that he's Batman. Like I think he was one of the first to get that. And there's this whole thing between them, and they were, because the early attempts at doing a Batman movie in the 80s were all based on that set of stories, as they were going to use Silver St. Cloud. And I don't know if this is true, so take this with a grain of salt. But supposedly the reason they switched to Vicky Vale is because someone at Warner Brothers thought Silver St. Cloud sounded too much like a porn star.
I believe that. Okay. Should we talk about the kissing now or wait until the scene is over? This is ridiculous.
I'm going to talk about this scene, and I mean, it's going to be part of the scene, so I might as well talk about the scene first. But so he goes to the final flashback, which is of Talia, and they saw each other again after the last time, because it was supposed to be the last time, but she contacted him. And 6 months ago they met, and she's like, I want your flesh. And like Armie Hammer Batman is like, ooh, I bet I want yours too, but not the way you think. And she's kissing him, and she bites his lip, and through the blood, she like spits into his mouth a nano tracker.
Yeah, I have to read this, because this is amazing. Hold on 1 second.
It is super like over dramatic.
Okay, and I just want to like mention real quick. The kissing motif in this script has been unbelievable. Like, and it's even weirder to read it because it's like, okay, well, Flash and Iris, like earlier in the script, they only kiss once, but in the scene description, he mentions the word kiss like 3 times. So while you're reading this, it's like you just read the word kiss over and over and over again. It's like, wow, they're really obsessed with that. And I guess that makes sense in terms of like, okay, so this all comes to a head right now. Like this is why this script was so focused on the kissing aspect. But I have to read this shit. Hold on.
I found it. It's on 74.
It's on 73 and 74. Okay. So basically what happens is Talia and Batman are kissing, or they're getting ready to.
She takes off his gloves specifically.
Yeah, she takes off his gloves, and the other glove, she raises his hand to her lips, kisses his palms with wet kisses, wraps his arms around her waist.
I'll read the dialogue. And
go ahead.
This.
She places her hands on his chest, over his heart.
Because I know it's mine.
And Talia devours him. A kiss like an animal. A kiss almost as brutal in its passion. Batman pulls away, his lip bleeding. He licks the blood away, throws his cape around her body, enveloping her with his darkness. Oh my god. Okay. Right. And as they fall back into her bed, the kiss repeats itself, the image playing over and over, closer and closer, lips, teeth, blood, until we're close enough to see a tiny glint of metal, a nanoscopic homing device in the bead of blood, and Batman's tongue taking it inside his body. Wow. Wow.
Jesus. You know what that was reminding me of? It doesn't go quite as far as this, but there's that scene in Batman Forever where Nicole Kidman just... No, wait, it's in Batman Returns where Catwoman just flat out grabs his bat dick.
Yeah, she grabs his codpiece.
Yeah, and I think they make like an erection joke in that scene. Fucking hell, Tim Burton, what is wrong with you? But yeah, that scene, wow.
And like, I get that like, none of what we just read outside of the dialogue would have been in the movie. But like, just reading this, it was like, oh my god, I'm reading fan fiction again. Like,
yeah,
what?
I love like the very next shot. It's exterior sky day. The black bat plane banks sharply. A change in flight plan, blowing a hole in the clouds. He just did like a Roadrunner sharp turn.
Yep.
And so Superman, he's off. Flash and Wonder Woman, they're visiting planet Krypton, so Flash can get his energy back up. So we're back there. And Superman is checking satellites. The surgeries... Superman is checking satellites. I think it's really funny because he flies past an AT&T satellite, which,
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because yeah.
Because AT&T now owns Time Warner.
Yep, little product placement there.
But so the surgeries at the fortress continue, and Green Lantern successfully removes the bug from Aquaman, and then scrubbing Manhunter clean with green lasers. They reflect it off of something. It was weird.
Yeah, that was weird, because I read that a couple of times, and basically what happens is, hang on, he makes a mirror. Like, Green Lantern makes a mirror, and then he shoots the lasers into the mirror, and they reflect off of it, and then burn the coating that's on Martian Manhunter away. And I'm like, that was odd. Like, I don't know why you would need to. I mean, I don't know. That read very odd. Maybe it would make more sense visually. But yeah.
No, the really cool visual is Martian Manhunter. He's all burned and crusted from the dermabrasion. He just bursts out of it, and he's like restored.
Yeah, and I could see him being like a really bright green, and maybe that would be the first time that he would be like maybe it would be like, yeah, I could see that being like a very cool shot of him, like an overwhelmingly green image.
And then Green Lantern gets his own bug out by, this is really fucking weird, where Aquaman's like, here, breathe in my water hand.
Yeah.
And then it flushes out the bug, and now Green Lantern is fine. And so in New York, Talia, who's just walking around on the street like an everyday person, Batman tracks her to Lord's secret lair, that half-finished building where they started from the top down.
Yep.
Just in case you forgot. And he's being watched by Lord the whole time. Then you go back to Central City. Flash and Wonder Woman are met by Wally, who once again is like, wow, you're super hot. And oh god, I just remembered you pointed out this dialogue to me where Wonder Woman is like,
here we go.
Like, I don't understand men's need to objectify the female form, and Flash is just like, well, have you seen how you're dressed?
Yeah, who wrote this shit? Was it Miller? Did Frank Miller write this? Like, it's so weird. I don't know. Like, it's like they're calling attention to her outfit, and it's kind of uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm just a little uncomfortable reading this.
It's just a weird scene. It's like they're trying to be clever and comment on Wonder Woman's, the the skimpiness of Wonder Woman's outfit, but it's just kind of like, it doesn't work. And oh, by the way, this is co-written by a woman.
Really? Oh, yeah, it is. That's right.
It's a husband and wife team.
Yeah.
And that's when Wally shows up, looks there, and goes, wow. And Flash is just like, case in point.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, exactly.
That dialogue just doesn't need to be here. So Wally, he brings them a specific file he found on the OMAC project, and I guess he downloaded it. He printed it out.
Yeah, really.
And so Batman confronts Talia in Lord's control room, where she berates him for throwing her away, and he realizes she isn't behind this. He was like, tell me who is OMAC. And the OMACs, they start to come online, like, there's people around the world, they start turning on, basically. And while...
Yeah, it's all... Go ahead.
It's all people who are at the party, basically.
Yeah.
And so Wally goes over the file with Flash and Wonder Woman, explaining how in the 70s, the OMAC project was experimenting on orphan children, trying to create a group of psychic warriors, but they all died in the process, all but one, Jonah Wilkes. And Wally also ran Jonah's picture through a forensic aging program to see what he looks like now, revealing him to be Maxwell Lord. Dun,
Gasp.
dun, dun.
Oh, no!
Now, I don't know if technology that sophisticated actually exists. Like, it would probably look kind of like Maxwell Lord. But okay. And Wally... Okay, I already read that part. And at this time, Lord reveals himself to Batman, along with 3 personal guards, who are the bikers from earlier. And he initiates the program, and rich and powerful people from all over the world who all attended Bruce's party begin getting taken over by OMACs. And Lord then has the runt transform into OMAC Beta, which shoots tendrils into the other 2 guards and infects them with nanos, making them into OMACs as well. And they attack Batman, tearing at his limbs with their pincers. And so they're like pulling him, and he cries out, and Superman's up in space. He's like,
yeah.
And for some reason, Martian Manhunter picks this up because he's psychically connected to the Batman. I don't think they established that he was specifically keeping tabs.
Was that the explanation? Okay.
I don't think there was one.
All right.
And Lord is like, I want a world where children don't lose their parents, and they never have to watch their friends die, and they're never alone. I'm just like you. And Batman's like, you're nothing like me. You've never feasted on the flesh of your enemies.
I don't know. That's so... this was really when I got kind of depressed reading this, because I was like, I know Maxwell Lord's backstory. I know all of that, and this is fairly comic accurate.
It's actually not. It's not this whole...
Really?
He was actually, for a long time, he was like running the Justice League.
Right, like he was the Justice League's like governmental liaison, I think.
Yeah, and his whole motivation for the OMAC thing is that he doesn't want metahumans taking over, so he like subverts Checkmate and it basically sets up this whole OMAC thing as a means to wipe them all out.
Okay.
But I don't think the whole, I was part of this secret program thing, like, no, he does have psychic powers, though. But I think it's a different backstory.
Why didn't you save us 10 years before you were born, Batman? Because you assume this is like an 80s, this is year 1 Batman. So it's like, why didn't you save us when you were a baby, Batman?
Yeah, 22-year-old Batman.
So dumb.
Yeah.
I
like the motivation. The problem comes in with the whole cast. This is where the problem with the casting comes in. Because none of these people were old enough to play these more seasoned versions of the characters.
Right. And like we mentioned earlier, that's where it kind of falls apart a little bit. It's like, well, there's Planet Krypton, so these people have been around for a while, but they're all young, so I don't know. But yeah, I really did not... The dialogue is bad, and the explanation why Lord hates them it's bad, but even more so, it's like, what's the word? It's like not forced, but it's very
contrived.
Yeah, yes, thank you. It's very, very contrived, and it's like, and
he is still a better starter villain for the Justice League than Steppenwolf.
Fair enough.
But okay, so they're in Central City. Flash and Wonder Woman, they see a news report, because basically Maxwell Lord is like, I want you to cry out and bring them here. And then later he's mocking him because Batman's going like, don't come, which is what Talia was saying earlier. But no. But Maxwell Lord is like, well, of course they wouldn't come because of what you did to them, but he wants them to come, so why is he saying that? But they get the telepathic message from Martian Manhunter that the Batman needs help, and they rush into action. Well, Wonder Woman rushes into action to help. Flash fucks off and runs all around the world to see what's going on with the Omax.
Yeah, he doesn't do anything. He just like, oh god, okay, well I guess Russia's fucked up. Oh god, well I guess Japan's fucked up. Like, it's like, wow.
Like, he misses one of the big set pieces of the movie.
Yeah, he does.
And like, he's like, Wally, you stay here. And Lord tries to make Batman cry out again. And Superman arrives on the scene before long with Wonder Woman not far behind him because Flash is fucked off around the world. And they fight off and disable the 3 Omax, but Lord has successfully lured them into a trap. He uses his mind control abilities with great effort and strain and takes over Superman, making him think that Wonder Woman has tortured and murdered Lois Lane, which is the first mention of her in this whole thing.
Right. And I guess it's worth mentioning in the comic, it's very different. In the comic, they use red kryptonite to, because like this is basically Superman's like trap. And in the comic, what happens is he is hit with red kryptonite, which causes his skin to become translucent, and he basically takes in too much of our sun's power. But I think this is a little bit better. I like this a little bit more.
Well, this is what happens in the OMAC project.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I was just going off for Tower of Babel here.
Well, more or less what happens there is that Lord, he controls Superman, and at first he has him brutally attack Batman, making him think he's Brainiac, but then Wonder Woman, because this happens in a Wonder Woman issue. Like, I've read, the stuff I've read, like, it spilled, basically the OMAC thing was a lead into Infinite Crisis, and the OMAC stuff spilled over into Rucka's run, which then ended prematurely because he had issues with DC editorial. But pretty much what happens, he makes Superman think Batman is Brainiac, and he's attacking Batman, and Batman's gonna die, and Wonder Woman intervenes, and he makes Superman believe that Wonder Woman is Doomsday and has just killed Lois Lane.
Oh, that's where that comes from.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And so this brutal fight ensues, and like Wonder Woman, this was a really cool idea where she takes her bracelets and bangs them on the sides of Superman's head.
Yeah.
And just goes like discombobulates him. That was cool. But eventually Superman picks, because like this whole area is just full of like Maxwell Lord's like rich person crap. And so he picks up a sports car and chucks it at Wonder Woman and knocks her out the window. And that's something we have concept art of. And the building is just a normal building.
Okay. Oh, it's a superhero movie from the mid 2000s. We have to have a shot where somebody falls from a big height. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
Oh no, none of that.
But now, like, they fall to the street, then the fight continues into the upper atmosphere, and Wonder Woman throws Superman into the moon, and they fuck up the American flag that's up there, because of course they do.
That's right! Yeah, they land on the moon, and they somehow manage to land on the spot where Neil Armstrong landed. Like, yeah. What? I mean, okay, but like, what?
Well, Wonder Woman never gets to the moon. She just knows Superman's gonna come get her, and she's waiting. And Superman throws her right back down into New York Harbor, where Aquaman has arrived and retrieves her. And he promises to keep Superman distracted, and he sends masses of sea creatures after him before jumping in the fight with his trident, and then he gets thrown out of the water and slams into a building. Gets caught in a net by Green Lantern, like a green net, so haha, Aquaman's in the net.
Yep.
And
no respect.
The Martian Manhunter is by his side. And Wonder Woman returns to Lord's control room. This whole fight scene, I'm glossing over it, but it's awesome.
It is pretty well written outside of Aquaman calling all his fish friends.
Yeah.
Because all I could see, it was that epic moment where it's like, don't they explain it like this? Where it's like, you see all the fish, like, it's just like an army of fish appear.
Yeah.
And it's like, all I could think of is that scene from The Boys season 2 where Homelander just turns on his heat ray vision and just burns them all. And I'm like, okay, all right. So mass fish genocide going on, but they don't go into that.
But so she is confronting Maxwell Lord, and he's impressed that even Superman couldn't defeat her. He goes like, you're the only one I couldn't get to. So is this low-key saying Wonder Woman is the most powerful being in the DC universe?
Yeah, probably.
And bear in mind, this is before they made her a demigod.
Hey, you get no argument from me, man.
And this is back when she was just a clay statue blessed by the gods.
Right.
Okay, and if that's even her origin here. Well, okay, and so He raves like, none of you were here. Where were you? We were dying, and you were nowhere. Your favorite motivation in the script. And so Superman, he arrives on the scene once again, but his attack is interrupted by Green Lantern, who has formed a green Superman with his ring, which, that's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, I agree. I like this whole action beat from here until the end. I like a lot. All of the action sequences I do enjoy.
Yep, and they're fighting, and that's kind of something that carried over from the Jack Black Green Lantern script, where the Jack Black character who gets the ring instead of Hal Jordan, he is like, I need a real hero to clean up my mess, and so he looks at a poster of Superman in the movie and goes, I'm gonna make a green Superman. But then, eventually, he realizes that Green Lantern is making this, and so he just goes and blows him over.
Yeah.
It's a Wonder Woman. She has her lasso around Lord, who is compelled to tell the truth. The only way to free Superman is to kill him right here and now. But Wonder Woman can't bring herself to do it. And he's like, I've won. You swore a solemn oath never to take a life. Ooh. And Martian Manhunter. Superman's on his way, but Manhunter keeps him distracted by shape-shifting into his mother, which, damn, that's cold.
Oh, yeah. This part was interesting.
Although you would think, he shapeshifts into Lara because he saw the statue of her, but you think it would be more effective if he turned into Martha. Not to make that stupid joke.
Why did you say that name? I did it for you, don't worry.
Yeah, I wasn't going to. And Superman's getting closer, is about to beat the shit out of Wonder Woman. He's going you can't do it, can you? And then a voice goes, but I can, Max. Your meat belongs to my burgers now. And the Batman comes down and just snaps his neck.
Fuck yeah.
That is stupid.
Yes.
That is not what happens in the comics. Because Wonder Woman is not this, never kill ever hero. She was raised by a society of heroes, of warriors.
Fucking warrior. No.
And she weighs the options, and she snaps Superman's neck. That makes sense. But here they make it Batman, the guy who, is no guns, no killing, and, everything.
Yeah. Well, except most of the movies. But yeah.
I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to save you.
Yeah, and it like I mentioned a while back, it's weird that it's Batman that does it, because you look at the dialogue there. I don't remember I don't feel like going back to it.
It's like he says to Superman, you're supposed to be nonviolent, and then Wonder Woman slugs him and she says, but I'm not.
Right. And it's okay, all right, I see what they're doing here. So it would be Wonder Woman. And it's I don't know. I don't know if this is just, maybe they didn't get to this part of the rewrite yet, or I don't know.
It's almost like they're soft pedaling her character a little bit. They want her to be pure and good and cute and stuff like that, but so they don't want to have her kill. And that's really funny because the actual Wonder Woman movie, she just straight up chops a dude's head off in the climax of that, and no one cared.
Yeah, well, they're trying to make her the female Superman. And this was a big disappointment for me. It was the fact that Batman is the one that does it.
Yeah, it's it just doesn't work. She straight up chopped off Colonel Stryker's head in the Wonder Woman movie. Maxwell is dead, and Superman is oh, what happened? He's you were killing her, Clark. And Superman is rightly horrified by what has happened. He's just going oh no. Oh my, Diana, I'm so sorry. And Batman's I did this to him. And they're what? He goes it had to be done, blah, blah, blah. And I like how they get over it pretty quickly, because in the comic, after that happens, Batman is the biggest douche about it to Wonder Woman. He's how could you?
Yeah, that's the end of the League for a little while, I think.
Yeah. And also it doesn't help matters that Maxwell Lord was recording that shit and broadcasted it around the world.
Ooh, yeah, I forgot about that.
But this just furthers Lord's plans, because his mind has somehow merged with Brother Eye, which this is just dumb and they should have written it out, which then pulls Talia into the computer and physically bonds with her, turning into a robot, and Batman's all torn up. He's no! You ruined me!
All I can see is Superman. What, Superman 4?
No, I think that's Superman 3 with the supercomputer.
Yeah.
Superman 4 is Nuclear Man.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Superman. All I can see is that scene from Superman 3.
And the computerized voice is it's like countless civilians around the world are now becoming OMACs because I, Maxwell Lord, I spread the nanomachines to people. What everyone needs, lunch. It's in Maxwell's special chef sauce in the burgers at Planet Krypton. Wahaha.
Plot twist. There you go.
That is because this script, it has its goofy moments, but for the most part, it's played relatively straight. That is campy as hell.
Yeah. That's not where I checked out, but I didn't check out in the script, but that was hard to swallow.
Like one of the burgers.
Yeah.
Now, in the comics, the way they spread the OMACs around was through vaccinations, and I can kind of see why they wanted to change that, because not only does that give people like Jenny McCarthy more ammunition, but just looking at the real world right now, how much trouble we have getting a vaccination out for a pandemic, yeah, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so they're programmed to eliminate all metahumans, and of course the Flash arrives late, having missed all of this, because he decided to run around the entire world checking on everybody. And they convene on the roof of a nearby building, minus Batman getting ready to fight the oncoming swarm of OMACs. And Batman, and I think this is like the scene where Flash is like, it's nice having us all work together. Shame Batman couldn't be here. This is where the idea of the Justice League kind of germinates.
Yeah.
And so they're there, getting ready to fight the swarm of OMACs. It's like an entire fucking army of like 1 million of them that's on its way.
Wait, and this is where Wally West showed up, right?
Almost. We're almost there.
Okay, all right.
And so Batman has stayed behind in the control room, and he's trying and failing to disengage Talia from the computer. And he then just cuts the cables, leaving only the one attached to her heart, so she's like the fucking people from Dune, the movie, not the book. And he holds her as she dies. He's like, I could have been better. I could have been a better man. And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, the dialogue is not great.
Like, I get the emotional beat they're trying to go for here. I don't think it quite works, especially since I've never really thought of Talia Al Ghul as being the love of Batman's life by any means.
Yeah, no, it's Catwoman. That's my stand. Like,
it's Catwoman and screw DC for fucking up the wedding.
Oh, no, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, and it's either that or Julie Madison, but only because Scott Snyder actually did something with Julie Madison in his New 52 run. The heroes on the rooftop, they're suddenly joined by Wally in his makeshift costume, who's determined to help. And Barry is like, no, go away. And then the rest of the heroes are like, no, like, we could really use every bit of help we can get, because we're all in, like, really terrible shape.
And I love the line where Aquaman, like, looks at Barry and he looks at Wally and he's like, oh my god, there are two of them now.
Yeah, that was great. Because Wally's doing this thing where he's, like, running around, like, introducing himself to everybody. He's very much like little Barry.
Yeah.
That was great. And so Barry's just like, fine, you can help, but hang back. Don't put yourself in harm's way if you don't have to. And Batman then joins them, and he's like, I got some Maxwell Lord in a doggy bag if you want some. and like, so the rest of the heroes push Flash. He says the Control has moved to a new host, which they need to take out. And the Justice League, we've now been gathered for the first time, and they spring into action. Aquaman is the first line of defense. And he actually has, like, fucking orcas jumping out of the ocean and snatching OMACs out of the air, which is like, okay, that's cool.
That is very cool, yeah.
And they are very, like, quick to point out that they're watching the collateral damage and that there are civilians inside these OMACs who don't know what's going on, and so they're going to try their best not to kill them.
But it doesn't really work out, because some of this, like, especially, like, a little bit, like, just a couple of pages later, like, they talk about how some of the OMAC float, like, up in the air, and I'm like, well, they're fucking dead.
Yeah. And now this is kind of what happens in the comic, but instead of, like, Maxwell Lord's brain, like, merging with Brother Eye, he instead installed a program into Brother Eye where basically when he gets killed, it turns on and it sends the OMAC swarm after the heroes. And there's actually two of these, because Brother Eye is sort of self-aware and is really pissed off at Wonder Woman for killing Maxwell Lord. So it specifically sends a massive swarm at Themyscira, which because of shit that went on in Rucka's Wonder Woman run with Zeus and Hera dicking around, Themyscira is no longer hidden. It's just been plunked off the coast of North Carolina.
Okay, so that's when that happened.
Yeah.
All right.
And I have no idea how much that stuck.
Yeah, I don't think any of it.
But yeah, Aquaman also uses octopuses.
Yeah.
So Topo showed up, and And just as Batman is explaining that the Control OMAC will be bigger and badder than the others, the Flash, who, as we know, loves the plant Krypton food because of the high caloric content, he transforms into OMAC Ultra, which is the control unit. And Batman and Superman engages in combat with it as the other heroes fend off incursions from the OMAC horde, and this is a pretty cool action.
Yeah, this is a great... Actually, there's a lot of... Just to kind of not jump ahead too far, but just to kind of mention it, what's interesting about this action sequence here is there's a lot of, like, the stuff that we would see a couple of years later in the Avengers. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it very much is that whole, like, them bouncing off each other and, like, playing to each other's strengths, and it's good. It's good. Good job, guys.
And, Batman goes, don't destroy it because, the Control will jump to another host and they'll lose it. And Martian Manhunter gets the idea to telepathically contact Flash inside the OMAC, and he wakes him up with the help of Wally West, so the Flash is now aware while inside this massive cocoon. Like, I'm trying to imagine what this would look like. It would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And realizing what he has to do, Flash vibrates faster than he ever has, and he goes to, like, that moment where everything stands still. He phases through through OMAC Ultra, and he runs to his house where he wishes Iris goodbye, and this is a really great scene. He's talking to her saying, like, I do think I can save the entire world now this time, not just the part with you in it, but I don't think I'll be coming back. And she cries. You get the idea that she can hear him, and he leaves. And so he goes back. He goes back.
It's very good. It's very, very good. This was one of the highlights of the script, I thought.
Yeah, and so he snaps back to OMAC Ultra in New York, and he runs inside the OMAC, going so fast that it scatters behind him, and it's following after him, chasing him. And he's followed at first by Wally, who's going, Uncle Barry, what are you doing? You're going too fast. And he's going like, no, I gotta do this. Hang back. You gotta be there for Iris, blah, blah, blah. And so Barry, he runs. He keeps running, and he runs so fast, he crashes through the speed barrier along with OMAC Ultra, destroying himself and the machine in the process, and that causes all the OMACs to shut down. And Wally returns, grief-stricken, to the rest of the League, and Barry's Flash uniform flutters down from a rip in space-time, which that's the classic image from Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yep.
And, it's so good. You really feel, because they do such a good job of building up Barry as a character, aside from that, 3 or 4 or 5, bad lines of dialogue he has.
No, he's good. He is good throughout all his dialogue, and he's a solid character throughout it. And like we said at the beginning, he is essentially the main character of this. And they stuck the landing. I will give them that. This was very, very good.
Yes, and his whole arc is fantastic, and I love that. You really feel the loss. And so we go back to the funeral from the beginning, and why are they burying first of all, what are they burying? Second of all, why is it in Metropolis and not Central City?
Yeah.
That's a question worth asking. But it's to hide the twist, because can you imagine this getting made and people who don't know the comics coming in to see this and just getting floored by that?
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be really good. There'd probably be some comic book fan if this came out in around 2010 thinking, they're probably at the beginning thinking, I bet Batman's not really dead. I bet he's fucking drifting through time and meeting pirates and cavemen and Vandal Savage is there, and you meet there's a fucking octopus chasing him through time to kill him and blah, Dark Side.
Well, I will say, it's funny because I was like, all right. Well, I wasn't expecting the Flash to die until they introduced Wally at the beginning of the script. I almost said something about it then, but I'm going to go ahead. But I decided not to. I'm going to bring it out right now. Dude, as soon as Wally showed up, I was like, oh, Barry's fucking dead. Oh, God, he's fucking dead.
Which oh, go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, there's 3 separate scripts which have both Barry and Wally in them, and in all 3 of them, Barry dies. Only he actually dies at the end of this instead of the beginning.
A little bit like Superman. The last time you inspired anyone was when you died. Yeah, but I'm just glad they didn't do to Flash what they did to Blue Beetle in the comics. That was my thought, because I wasn't really thinking, okay, they're going to do kind of a shout out to Crisis on Infinite Earths. I thought Maxwell was just going to shoot Barry. And I knew it wasn't going to be like in the comics where he blows out the back of his head or whatever.
Yeah, I've seen that panel. It's super gory. He just shoots Ted Kord in the fucking head.
Nope, it blows out the back of his skull. It's like, oh God. But I expected that to happen, and I'm glad it didn't. Like, I'm glad that it all went the way it did, and it's very well written. So this would have been good.
Yeah, well, we then go back to the funeral from the beginning, and we now know that Barry is the one being laid to rest. Don't know what they're laying to rest. I guess they just put the costume in the coffin.
No, well, Wally gets the costume, so I assumed it was like, I don't know.
Maybe
a bunch of Krypton burgers?
I would guess Wally made a new costume, or Barry had some spares lying around.
Okay.
Iris is there, and it's all really sad. And then Batman arrives later that night, because it's like he doesn't believe he's worthy of showing up for the funeral. Like, he really does blame himself for all of this. And he leaves a single red rose on the grave, mourning in his own way. And he has a really good line here, too, I want to read at the... Because it's clear that the loss moved Batman in the way it did. And he says, "Godspeed, Flash, Barry Allen, Godspeed." Yeah, that was really good. Like, that's something he does. That's what he does at his parents' grave.
Yeah. Crime Alley.
Yeah, Crime Alley or his parents' grave. He has a single red rose. Because I guess his parents don't deserve separate flowers. It's all one grave, damn it. But, okay, so we go later on in the fortress, because they haven't built the watchtower yet. The League proposes to work together from now on, with all agreeing, including Wally, who has now taken on the Flash's mantle from Barry for good. And I like the little moment he has there where he says, "This should be Uncle Barry, this shouldn't be me." But it's Wonder Woman who actually gives him, the motivation to step up, which is a very inspirational Wonder Woman moment. Like, that's totally Wonder Woman.
Yes, very much so.
And the only holdout is Batman, who feels like he doesn't belong among them as he's just a man. Now, how did you feel about this dialogue?
No, that's right. No. Batman, Bruce Wayne. Okay, I am a firm believer that Bruce Wayne is the mask that Batman wears. Like, I don't know. I remember like reading this and being like, I mean, okay, look, it works for this, but like in the grander scheme, no, because like, okay, so basically what happens is Batman, his exact quote is, "I'm Bruce Wayne and I have one weakness. I'm human." And it's like, no. I mean, I've always been of the idea that Bruce Wayne is the mask that Batman wears. Right?
Yeah, I don't really know how it works, but I do like the point it's making here that he's realizing his fallibility and he's not the Grant Morrison Bat God.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
And I like the idea that his weakness is that he's human is much better than love in all caps.
Oh God, yeah.
And I love Superman's response where he says, "No, Bruce, that's your strength, our strength." Because when you think about it, behind all the powers, Superman is arguably the most human member of the Justice League.
Right.
Like, he's just a normal dude who is doing what he can. He just can do a whole hell of a lot. And so that wins Batman over, and he agrees to join.
A firm shake.
A firm shake, because Batman ain't got no weak pussy handshake. And right after that happens, Earth is attacked by Starro the Conqueror, who is a giant starfish alien. And Aquaman's
yes.
And Aquaman's just like, "That looks like a starfish."
Yeah.
You fucking dork, Arthur. And they fly off into space because I guess Aquaman can fly now to fight this
And I guess Batman will be fine in space.
Well, I mean, he does breathe in space with just a little plastic thing over his mouth in Brave and the Bold. But, they fly off into space to fight this new threat, and that's where it ends.
Yep. And then they start playing Hello, Mr. Blue Sky. And they have a fun time fighting a big starfish monster.
Yeah, and Wally's just dancing around.
Yeah, right. Well, I would say real quick, what's funny about that is the day that that's the last Sunday when I was reading this, my wife and I took the dog out for a walk, and we were talking about Justice League, and we started talking about Justice League villains. And I was about halfway through the script at that point. And we were talking about Justice League villains, and I was like, well, Justice League is more about, like, fighting, like, the big threats. And she was like, well, like, who? And I was like, well, I mentioned Orin, Aquaman's brother, and I was like, but my favorite Justice League villain is Starro. Because he's basically DC's version of Cthulhu, more or less. And I was like, yeah, and I looked at her and I was like, yeah, but they're never going to put Starro in a movie. So imagine my surprise when this script ends with a fucking Starro cameo. So I was really excited when Starro showed up. I was like, yay!
Yeah, that was actually a cool ending. So overall, I think this is a good early draft. It just needs, like, some of that stuff just needs to be tweaked.
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, this is more than just the skeleton of a good script. I mean, it was entertaining. The actual writing of the script was rough, especially the second half. I think the first half was solid, and then the second half kind of fell apart a little bit. And I just assumed that, like, this draft of the script that we have it definitely isn't the George Miller version, the George Miller cut.
Yeah,
but I get the feeling like this was probably just one of the many drafts that got turned in while they were still working on it. They were probably compartmentalizing it and working on it as they went.
Yeah,
which would explain that drop in quality halfway through.
They might have had to rush the draft out too. Like, they may have been on a time crunch.
But I liked it, and I think that using Tower of Babel and OMAC Project is not where I would have gone. Like, I think that's a really interesting storyline to adapt, and watching it play out here, it kind of makes sense. Like, that's solid.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you would immediately think, oh, like, that's a sequel.
Yeah.
Because when I first read this, I was initially confused at the end when they were going, like, yeah, let's form a Justice League, because I kind of thought the first time I read this that it was just the Flash who wasn't a member yet.
I can see why you would think that, though, because, like, everybody knows each other except for the Flash, and you even get the, like, implication or impression that they've worked together before, not just, like, know each other, but they've worked together before.
I mean, like I said earlier, the Trinity, at the very least, they're all on a first name basis with each other.
Right.
And Aquaman clearly knows Wonder Woman from some point.
But I also like that. I like the fact they cut through all the bullshit and the fat. It's like, we all know, like, I mean, yes, most people don't know Martian Manhunter, and a lot of people don't know Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman hadn't had a movie yet, but, like, everybody knows Superman, everybody knows Batman.
The Flash,
we all know their origin.
I mean, the Flash, there might have been someone going, I watched the 90s show.
Right.
Like, he was in the cartoons.
But no, I appreciated that. I appreciated the fact they trimmed all that fat out.
Yeah, you do have a point there. Although, like I said, though, it could use some slightly more fleshed out character introductions. Like, we need to know more about Wonder Woman than just the fact that she's an ambassador, super strong, and hot.
Oh yeah, no. This this was not. I have no doubt this was not the version of the script that George Miller was, like, going to go make.
Yeah, it's like there's things with it, like the whole your weakness is love crap, and honestly, I would just revert to the comics with the ending, where just have OMAC Ultra be the thing that, like, just have it be a program that Lord installed inside Brother Eye. Don't keep Lord around as this weird digital avatar of himself. And just, like, the weakness being love thing, that's where Lord's plan gets a little too convoluted and convenient, that he gives him that clue and Batman immediately knows it refers to Talia and knows to go find her and is just able to follow her into Maxwell Lord's place and then get attacked. Like, they needed to find a stronger way to get him there. Like, maybe have the world's greatest detective do a little bit more detecting.
Well, I think it would have been kind of, that works out. I mean, yes, I agree. And I think it works out in this script fairly well. I don't think we touched on this. In the comic books, what it is Ra's al Ghul has dug up Batman's parents and is holding them above, what's it called? The Lazarus Pit.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, like, I think between the two, I think there could have been a better compromise, because I do like the idea of Batman's parents being his weakness more than Talia. Like, I mean, come on. But I also like what they did with Talia up to a certain point in this script.
Well, they could have managed it. Like, they could have done everything exactly the same, just found a different way to get him there.
Yeah, fair enough.
Or they could have had him track down Talia purely through detective skills, and then Lord is like, well, I wasn't planning on this, but, it will serve my purpose. Like, it's almost, like, I mean, it's not nearly as convoluted as Lex Luthor hiring KG Beast to frame Superman for murdering people in Africa because the destruction of Metropolis wasn't enough to turn people against him.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, hey, I'm just glad Maxwell Lord didn't leave a jar of piss on a table for someone to find. But I would overall, like, you smooth out some of those rough bits, like some of a good chunk of the dialogue. Like Wonder Woman, for example, like they do a good job of peppering in a little bit of stuff into her dialogue, like her swearing by the gods and stuff like that, but you needed a little bit more of a sense of who she is. Maybe a teeny tiny bit more of Martian Manhunter, and a little bit more from Green Lantern, because we need to know that his powers come from space.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Hal Jordan Memorial Park is just a hand-wavy thing that I guarantee you 90% of the audience wouldn't have even read.
Like,
you know what I mean?
And when they were speculating about stuff, there should have been a part where he's like, I mean, I just spoke to the Corps not long ago. Everything's fine.
Right.
Although there might not be any more Green Lantern Corps left if Hal Jordan is dead. They might all be fucking, like, dead or depowered.
Right.
But no, I mean, fix some of that stuff, and this is a perfectly workable movie, and I have no doubt Miller at least tried.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, what you were telling me earlier and looking at some of the concept art, I would love to read the Miller, for like, the version that he signed on for. I would love to read that draft, because I bet the bones of this are here, but I bet it's all tighter, and clearly they go to Themyscira. Or at least they show it. So, yeah.
Yeah, or at least Wonder Woman goes there at some point.
Right.
Now, to fill in, like, the production stuff, what happened is that they wanted to get it in. They wanted to get it in before the writer's strike was due to start. But they had to shut down because the writer's strike began that same month. That they were putting it together in September, I think. The writer's strike began and Warner Brothers had to let the options lapse for the cast. But once the strike ended in February 2008, they fast-tracked it again. And Miller and Warner Brothers were all like, let's get this going immediately. But then there was a delay. And eventually what happened, because they were going to shoot it at Fox Studios Australia in Sydney. And they were like scouting locations at local colleges. And there was like so many things, but apparently Sydney Heads was doubling for the DC location of Happy Harbor. And then the reason why they were going to do it was they got actors and a bunch of Australian crew, but then the Australian government decided to deny Warner Brothers the 40% tax rebate, which was the entire reason they were going to film in Australia, aside from having George Miller involved, because they felt like they didn't have enough Australian actors.
Those dumbasses. And I read about how Miller was furious because he was like, do you know how many jobs this would have made? Like, this would have been a big boon to the film economy here. Like, Miller was pissed.
And this is the quote. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the Australian film industry is being frittered away because of very lazy thinking. They're throwing away hundreds of millions of dollars of investment that the rest of the world is competing for, and much more significantly, highly skilled creative jobs. So yeah, he does seem very upset. And so they moved the production offices to Vancouver, because fucking everything is filmed in Vancouver now to the point where it's practically a joke.
Right.
And filming was pushed back to July 2008, and they were confident they could get it out for summer of 2009, so if they had gotten it out by then, they would have beaten the Avengers by 3 years, and we wouldn't be in this situation we're in now.
Yeah, this would have beaten the Avengers out.
That's crazy.
Okay, I have to wonder what the box office returns for this would have been. I mean, there's no way to ever know, but it's like, so you look at Marvel, and it's like, well, they had, Iron Man came out in 2008,
yeah.
I think. So it's like they had, 4 to 6 years? Well, I guess 4 years there to build up to the Avengers, whereas this would have been essentially riding off the coattails of only Christopher Nolan's Batman movies.
Yeah, only the first two. And Superman Returns, I guess. Yeah, that would have been... But I think it could have worked if they advertised it right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And 2009 was not a very, crowded summer.
Yeah, the only I don't remember anything that came out in 2009 except Watchmen.
Well, okay, let me give this to you straight. Marvel Studios didn't release a single thing that year. The one Marvel movie that came out was, and this kicked off the summer movie season, X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh god, that was in 2009?
Yeah. But, like, I mean, the thing I remember as being, like, the good movie that was, like, a major hit from that movie season was Star Trek.
Yeah.
And eventually what happened is that they kept, there was the production delays, and then the massive success of The Dark Knight happened in July 2008, and Warner Brothers said, we're going to focus the development on individual films. So we're not going to do a big crossover to spin stuff off from, although it doesn't really feel like they were planning spin-offs. It feels like they were planning these completely unconnected solo movies anyways.
Kind of like what they're doing right now.
Oh, more or less.
Joke.
And so it got killed by The Dark Knight.
Yep.
So was it the hero we deserve?
Or was it the hero we needed?
Who knows? But I mean, and from what I understand, because things fell apart, that's the entire reason why George Miller did Happy Feet 2. Because his schedule was open.
Okay.
But yes, it is a shame because I think there's real potential here.
Yeah, I liked it. It's nowhere near the worst thing I've ever read.
Nowhere near the worst DC script I've read. It's kind of ballsy that Warner Brothers was just like, we're going to make a Justice League movie. Like, throughout this entire decade, they were just like, we're not doing shit aside from Batman, one Superman movie, and a Catwoman movie, and Watchmen, if you count that as DC.
Yeah, all Batman, all the time.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a missed opportunity, because just imagine if they had gotten this out and it had been good and it had been a hit, and they would have had their shared universe if they wanted it.
It would have been interesting. I don't know. I hate to say it, but I think people still would have flocked to Marvel because people want that. Because, like, people want that beginning, middle, and end to our stories. We want that cohesion and the strong sense of, like, sequel narrative, I guess, which the Marvel movies have, for the most part, outside of a couple of missteps. I think that this would have been a big fucking hit. Like, I think that this would have been, I don't think it would have been Endgame levels of hit. But yeah, so I don't know. I think that this would have been a big hit. And I think a lot would have ridden on, because, like, you figure Nolan's Dark Knight Rises came out in 2012.
Yeah.
So we probably would have gotten Justice League 2 either at the same time or shortly before or after. Probably shortly, either at the same time or shortly after. And I think Nolan would have been done with Batman. So maybe if Christian Bale stepped away and the Nolanverse was done, people would have gone, it would have worked out because people would have felt that sense of continuity there. But like I said, though, I feel like, no, I think the sense of continuity that Marvel has would have won out.
Yeah, but I think even Christian Bale was like, I don't want them to make this movie.
Oh, yeah, and I think Nolan himself didn't like the idea. And just to let people know, if you want to read the script is widely available on the internet. I think all you have to do is just go to Google and search out Justice League Mortal, and it'll probably pop right up.
Yeah, this one has been around. This one has been around for ages. Like, I think this leaked like very early.
Yeah, I've had this one for a while.
Like, I think this leaked in this would have leaked by like 2010 or something like that.
Yeah, this one's been around for a while. Readily available.
Yeah, it's one of the first ones I downloaded. Yeah, Justice League Mortal. Interesting look at what could have. But yeah, that wraps that up. And, I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I know I'm probably forgetting some of my closing spiel, but at this point, I don't care. So until next time, bye.
Later on.